You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
Good evening. It's 7 o'clock. My name is Peter Basserman. I chair the Inland Wetland Commission for Branford. It is November 9th at 7 o'clock, November 9th, 2023. We are in a Zoom meeting via Public Act 22-3. Please mute your microphones when you're not speaking. We've got a few folks gather here tonight for the meeting. It'll help with the interference. BCTV is recording this evening. Let's see.
Recording in progress.
Here we go. Katie, are you all set?
I'm granting her permission to record right now. 1 second. All set.
Thank you. We'll first do a roll call. Clarice Begeman,
Commissioner Begemon, present.
Commissioner Armrod,
Commissioner Armrod, present.
Commissioner Gokowski,
Commissioner Gokowski, present.
Commissioner Boda,
Commissioner Boda, present.
Commissioner Finaro.
Commissioner Finaro, present.
I don't see any other commissioners. Did I miss anyone? And staff, Inland Wetland Enforcement Agent Jamie Frederick,
Present.
and Inland Wetland Associate Katie Blanchett.
Present.
Okay, first up, we have the minute approval for the October 12th meeting. It's on the website as well as been mailed to the commissioners. Any motion to approve those minutes?
This is Commissioner Begemon. I make a motion that we approve the regular meeting minutes from October 12th, 2023.
I second that. Commissioner Gokowski.
This is Commissioner Boda. I wanted to offer just on one of the items a note of revision for 38 Howard Avenue. There was discussion about the concern of reaching the end of the number of days that we have to review, and that the information was coming in late. And so that would like some of that language to be included in the minutes, as that may have an impact later.
Noted. I will make those adjustments.
Thank you.
Okay, we will table then the approval of the minutes of October 12th, 2023.
On that note, Commissioner Begemon, would you like to withdraw your motion?
Commissioner Begemon, withdraw the motion.
So we'll continue that in the December meeting, and appreciate the amendment. Okay. First up, we have the public hearing, Inland Wetland 230702, 38 Howard Avenue, the retaining wall construction and associated activities, including activities proposed on 34 Howard Avenue. Jamie, do we have an update on this?
Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland Agent. We have not received authorization yet from the property owners for 34 Howard Ave. So based on past practice, it would be my recommendation to the commission that the public hearing be opened and then continued to the December 14th meeting, given the fact that we've received consent to an extension from the applicant. And based on the fact the application is still incomplete.
Sounds like a reasonable approach. Any commissioner feel differently than tabling this and continuing the public hearing at the December meeting?
Mr. Chairman,
Too early. It's too early. I asked the commissioners if they had any reservations. Hearing none, I am going to close or continue.
Wait. So just for clarification, continue.
Yeah.
And do you want to allow parties to make brief comments, or given the fact the application is incomplete, table and continue to December 14th?
I would prefer the latter. Again, I offer that question to the commission if anyone feels that it's an appropriate time to entertain comments at this point, however brief they might be, or to continue the public hearing until the December meeting. If anybody feels that comments are warranted, please let me hear. Okay, hearing no reservation, we're going to continue the public hearing 230702 until the December meeting. Next up, application for receipt, inland wetland 2310.
Sorry, Peter, before we move on to the next item, just for timeline's sake, we do have another item for the subject site. 38 Howard Ave notice of violation number 5A. Is that also going to be continued to the December 14th meeting?
I guess my comment is, didn't we kind of do that at the October meeting where we had very little discussion on the notice of violation because the application was still under consideration?
So I'm just asking, given the fact that we're not discussing the application, does that also continue to the notice of violation, just so that people don't have to stick around until that item to find out that it's not being discussed?
Does that require a motion?
I think general consensus is fine.
Does anybody feel that the violation, notice of violation regarding 38 Howard Avenue needs to be discussed at this point? Or is everyone comfortable in combining those discussions in the December meeting?
This is Commissioner Boda. I mean, I don't think that we can discuss one without the other. I am curious about how logistically this application can move forward. If the applicant ultimately needs to we do have very specific timelines. Even with the extensions, we can only hear an item for so long by state statute. So I don't recall ever having a similar issue with respect to property ownership, and this is just a very unique case, and I think it would be wise for us to get some clarity from our own town council.
So 1 minute, sorry, before you continue,
Yeah.
Commissioner Boda, we've kind of opened and continued the public hearing to the next meeting, but I feel like we're kind of talking about the application. So I think we need to either reopen the public hearing for the item or table this discussion. So it's up to the commission how they want to proceed, but I think that this is information that should be within the public hearing.
The question was whether to extend the notice of violation as well. Commissioner Boda made a comment that it would be difficult, I think, to discuss one without the other. So I think, given that comment, it makes sense to move the notice of violation to the December meeting as well. Application for receipt, inland wetland 231003, 275 Northford Road, deck replacement with 2 smaller decks, generally within the same footprint. Do we have all the appropriate information for this, Jamie?
Jamie Frederick, inland wetland agent. So this application does have some outstanding information. I requested additional information regarding the footings, as they've submitted a building permit application as well. And I believe that the building officials also requested some additional information. Let me share the site plans real quick. All right, is everyone seeing site plans or plans?
Yep.
So a minute, let me all right. So this is a copy of a survey showing the existing deck, and then the red lines are the proposed deck. So essentially there's an existing deck that the property owner is looking to demo and replace with two overall smaller decks, but it's slightly different footprints. So scrolling back up, you can see the existing deck is in red. This is the back of the house, and then the proposed decks. One is a slightly larger, extending towards the wetland, and then the other one is a smaller replacement of a portion of the deck. You can see a picture of the deck off the back of the house, and you can kind of tell from this picture that it drops off fairly steeply. I've got a reference survey with elevations. So again, here's the house, the existing deck, and then you can see that it's a steep slope down to the wetland area. So given the slope and some of the details, I just wanted some clarification points. This application's for receipt. I wanted to check in with the commission and see if there's any additional information the commission is going to be looking for this application, or if kind of that clarifying details on the footings is probably the scope of information the commission would be looking for.
This is Commissioner Basserman. I guess the question also raises, given the steep slope and the closeness to the wetland, are erosion controls included in the plan?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, currently they are not. That's, I think, one of the things that I wanted some clarification on. So if you look at this detail, it shows retaining wall between pillars, but my understanding is it's kind of more of a brace than a retaining wall, but it also shows crushed stone behind it. So I'm a bit unclear as to the full. I think the majority of the earth disturbance is going to be for the replacement footings, but I just want to get a little bit more clarification on that in regards to what kind of erosion controls might be necessary.
This is Commissioner Boda. I think part of what would be necessary depends on the underlying substrate. So is it all rock, or is there soil, and what kind of soil is it? I mean, in different parts of town, the soil tends to be highly mobile, but that could be different if it's being pushed into rock. So I think that substrate that those are going into, that those pilings are going into, would be important consideration in whatever sediment erosion control they're putting into place. So that information would be important.
This is Commissioner Begemon. Also, do they say how they're going to dig those footing areas, whether it's manual, post hole kind of stuff, or whether they're going to get a machine in there?
My understanding is that they're going to be doing it by hand. There's really no way to get a machine back there.
Yeah, everything will be dug by hand.
I'm sorry, can you just state your name for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Andrew Narcisco, the property owner, 275 Northford Road.
Thank you.
Working with the contractor that I hired and all that. Everything is, as I've discussed with Jamie, prior, everything is going to be hand dug. As far as we don't want to disturb, we want to have as little disturbance as possible down there with, we don't want machines or anything in there to preserve the land.
This is Commissioner Basserman. I guess, is the deck pitched toward the wetland?
The deck pitch, is that what you said? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Stormwater
Runoff.
stormwater runoff would be towards the front of the house, like the pitch of the land goes down towards the driveway. So I don't see any really significant runoff at the deck per se. I know that the only thing that really is changing, like Jamie said, is the footprint. We're only coming out about 2 feet to support the deck better, because right now where it is on the back side of the house, we've had some issues with just stability over there. That's why we want to eliminate that entire section of the deck in the center. If Jamie has the other picture that's highlighted, but yeah, so the center part that we're taking out is the part that would have the runoff. That's where we lost the footing a long time ago, right prior to me even buying the house. We've had to, this is going to be a big project for me to take on financially wise. That's why I want to try to eliminate as much damages as I can towards the wetlands. But that part that we're eliminating is where any storm runoff would be. The rest of it is on level ground that has runoff going down towards the front of the driveway. If that makes sense. I'm really not, I don't really know how to articulate that properly. I'm not really a contractor. I'm just kind of trying to speak on my behalf at this point.
Do you know if the deck will have spacing between the boards so that that rain that falls on the deck would either get absorbed by the deck or go through the edge of the deck boards?
Yeah, I mean, I would assume so. That's what it is now. The space, the 1/4-inch spacing or whatever that's down for normal deck boards that are down now. I'm assuming it's going to be a similar style. I don't see why it wouldn't. That would be a good question for the contractor. I can ask him and follow up that information. I don't see why we would want anything to stay on top of the deck, or I don't really have an answer for that, but yeah, I would say that it's going to be around the same structure, same stability wise for that runoff.
Commissioner Bassman, is there going to be storage underneath the deck?
Storage?
Yes.
No, sir. No, sir. There's right now, there's nothing under there currently. And I don't plan on putting anything under there now. No, it's the way that it is. If you're looking at the property, I mean, you could tell it's a pretty big hill. It's unsafe as far as, even wanting to put stuff under there. If I really wanted to, it would be totally unsafe to do that anyways. So, there's not enough ground down there for, to put anything under there.
Thank you.
Commissioner Goklowski, is there any ledge on that area of the deck that you're replacing? Where you're going to be putting?
So the ledge part of if the smaller part of the deck that we have back there, the one that's going to be 12 by 8, the smaller one that we have, there's ledge over there. On the big side, no. But that's where they poured, on the smaller side of the house, they poured, you could see where they poured concrete over the ledge rock for the foundation, like when the house was built. So as far as ledge, there's some over there, but that shouldn't really affect anything as far as digging or anything. It's really pushed more towards the front of the property. There's no ledge really down below. So down in the slope of the inland wetlands, there's no rock down there. No.
Okay. Commissioner Goklowski again. So it's my understanding that you're removing the deck that is encroaching on the inland wetlands and just replace or rebuilding the deck that's currently existing and taking down that large piece of deck the way it looks. Is that true?
Yes, that is essentially the project. Yes, we want to take, so where the small deck is currently, the one or the smaller deck that we want to build currently, when that microburst came through a couple years back, it took away a lot of it. It damaged that part of the deck, partly due to the weather damage and all that stuff. So that's what started this whole project to begin with. But yes, so the highlight, the small part is where everything that's highlighted in red, where it says 798 square feet of the existing deck. We want to eliminate all that and just make it the 2 sections of the deck. The small one right off the bedroom of my bedroom, and the other one is right off my living room. So there's 2 sliding doors. There's actually 4 sliding doors, but There's sliding doors that go out back towards that, and we essentially the piece that we want to eliminate is where the biggest part of the hill is. So it's essentially the most unsafe part of the hill. So even if I was to keep the existing footprint and rebuild the entire deck, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that because it wouldn't be safe regardless. That's why I want to eliminate that piece.
Any other comments from the commission?
I believe you have a hand raised from Commissioner Ormerod.
Yeah, Commissioner Warmrod.
Hi.
I guess in addition to knowing what that substrate is, if there is going to be a retaining wall as shown on that plan.
Yep.
I'd like to get some more information on how, because I assume it looks like stormwater will infiltrate through the deck boards into that crushed stone area, and then I'd be interested to see how that drains. If there's any plans for a drain in that material and where it discharges to.
Right. I agree. I think from where the footprint is of where he's digging in those two new posts that's coming out right there, and he's putting that 4-inch piece of concrete in between the two slabs. I'm not essentially sure it's absolutely necessary to even do that, because right now behind the house there is a retaining wall there for that was built, in 1963, probably when the house was built. I have entirely no idea. I would just assume that's when it was. I think essentially he was trying to protect anything from runoff, which may, in fact, probably, like you just said, may increase that. As far as if there's no drainage in between that, it might create a bigger problem. So maybe that retaining wall isn't even really necessary there. And we've been in contact with we worked with a company a while back, Waldo Industries. They're engineering for wetlands, and we're also trying to contact a structural engineer if that's even remotely necessary for that to be there. Essentially, the footings would absolutely need to be there because that would be the only structure to hold up the deck. So, I mean, whether that is there or not, I mean, that may be to be determined. We may not even need that. The existing retaining wall that is there is currently intact and working. So why he would want to put that there, and I've had this discussion with Jamie, I don't really know, because I'm not an engineer and I don't really do that. He had this idea that maybe he was tying into the existing retaining wall that's currently there, because where he's putting the footings is essentially 2 feet out, and that's exactly pretty much where the retaining wall is. So maybe he's just trying to support that. But that's a good question that I can follow up with him with and get some more information, because that's, maybe we don't even need that, essentially. Maybe that is essentially we just take it out.
Great, thank you.
So Mr. Narciso, this is
Yes.
Commissioner Boda. I'm just wondering, so this is just for receipt tonight, and so
Sure.
we'll discuss it more at the
Absolutely.
next meeting, but is it possible to have the engineer present at the meeting? Because those tend to be the kind of questions that we have, and
Yes.
I think to expedite things, having the engineer, having additional information about the substrate, whether it's soil or how much of it is rock, how deep is the bedrock,
Sure.
and that we're going to want to know like how much water is coming off and the speed with which it's going to make it to the wetland, because the primary issue is going to be erosion for sure.
Okay. Sure. And I'm assuming that's along with the contractor, that's something that the engineer that I've worked with, Mark Young, for the inland wetlands, he would probably have an understanding of that, right? Because I'm not sure about the water runoff and all that stuff. So for me to follow up with him would probably be the way to go to get that information for you.
Mr. Young would be the person.
Okay, excellent. Will do.
Okay, that was for receipt. We have another application for receipt this evening in the Wetland 23-1004, 37 Branford Road, which is a new home construction, 3-family dwelling. Jamie?
So this application is for receipt. I've only had a very little amount of time to look at it. I'm hoping to get comments out to the applicant next week. I have shared the site plan with the town engineer and will forward any comments received upon receipt to the applicant. And I believe the applicant is present to give a brief preliminary overview of the project. Scott, are you with us?
I think so. I'm not good at
Okay.
this.
See you. I hear you.
How you doing? Okay, that's me. So you know, Jamie, and the board knows that we had this approved as two separate construction. We had it approved by Wetlands.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. Let me just step in real quick and kind of fill the gap because I don't think all of our commissioners were commissioners at the time necessarily. And or they may not recall because they've got busy lives. So this is an existing lot that the applicant had come to the commission about a year ago, I think, looking to split the lot into 2 lots and put a single family house on each lot. And they have approval for that development. What they're looking to do now is keep the lot as 1 lot and build a 3-family structure. I'll screen share and then hand it back over to the applicant to discuss. I'm actually going to scroll down to the site plan with grading.
Oops.
Bear with me. All right. So, existing lot, the wetlands are just off of the property. You can see the 100-foot upland review area extends into almost halfway into the proposed building. We've got parking in the front, stormwater management for the roof on either side of the proposed building, footing drain, and a proposed planting plan along the limits of clearing. And some retaining walls. So as I've said, I've not really looked at this yet, so I don't have any comments at this time. But I'm hoping to get those out to the applicant next week. So does the commission have any initial comments, questions, concerns for the applicant upon introduction of the application?
Commissioner Goklowski, just for clarification, this is 3 separate units, not a single 3-family house?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, this is Scott Sinarowski. It's 3 townhouses put together. But before we proposed to build 2 structures and had it approved 28 feet by 36 feet deep, this structure would be 60 feet by 28 deep, trying to keep it less close to the wetlands. There'd be less clearing in the back than we had proposed before and got accepted. And it's keeping it more to the right. The problem was we could have built both houses, but it was going to be hard to build one at a time with the slope that went back and only 10 or 12 feet between the properties to get machines in the back. So we figured financially, which I know doesn't matter, and it would make more sense to build 3 townhouses because we can keep the machine from turning around in the back and just dig, backwards towards the front, because you obviously have to dig less in the back than the front. And the slope goes off to the right and the rear on the left rear corner. So it was easier and less invasive to the wetlands or the property to build it like this. And also we're trying to save the trees on the left side of the property that go down on the left side if possible, which we think can happen. So.
Commissioner Goklowski, this is gonna be city water, city sewers?
Yeah. I think maybe it's not on this. It doesn't show it on this one, but the paper before, I don't know if Jamie has that. It shows the water and the sewer is going to connect on Brainerd on the right side of the front property.
Okay.
And I talked to Jennifer about that when we thought about doing this, the town engineer or assistant town engineer. Yeah, the water and the sewer is going to connect on the right side.
This is Commissioner Boda. It sounded like I would just want to see the approved, what we had approved versus what you have proposed here. You said that that is a smaller footprint in the back, so it's further away from the wetlands. Is that what you said?
I believe so. Yeah.
So if we can if one of the sheets on your site plan and show what was approved
Oh, okay.
versus what you're proposing and existing conditions, that's always really helpful to see.
Okay.
Jamie Frederick, and the wetland agent. So just for clarification, I was gonna add the approved site plans to the file as a reference document, but I didn't have time. Are you looking for that, or are you looking for Neefus and Young to do an overlay?
I mean, an overlay would be lovely, but if it could even just be put as a sheet in this site plan packet, that will be easier than it being in two separate files. I think that's better for our record keeping anyway, for it to be part of the application itself.
Okay. Yeah, we have that, so we can make that part of the site plan. That's not a problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I think it was just less invasive and it made more sense to build it like this than the other way.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. It does look like the limits of disturbance is about 10 feet further away from the wetland at its closest point, based on cursory, my very brief look at the application materials.
Commissioner Bassman, any other comments from the commission? All righty. Applications for review. BRIW 230802, 4581 Rock Road. Looking to put a 30-foot pole bridge across Vista Brook below the supply pond dam. We, I think, had this on the number of agendas. Do we have somebody here for 30802?
Yep. John Tolbert for the open space.
Okay. Why don't you take the floor and
Okay. So
a couple times, so give us the update.
all right. The project before was being used by Rich Shanahan, who's our chair, and he just got overwhelmed with other things. So I told him I would take it over, and I'm kind of taking a different approach. I'm going to take it little by little. And so the first step is I had Jamie come down to the site with the contractor, Jim Boyd, and the town employee, Matt Davidson. I don't know, Jamie, what's his title? Because he said he's not an engineer.
Just to clarify, Matt Davidson's not a town employee. He's just helping out with the project, and he is a soil scientist.
I thought he was a town. Okay. So anyway, so my first goal is to shore up the embankment where the erosion was shown. And I had all of us down there, and we talked to the contractor, Jim Boyd, and he assured me that it was something that he could do. And so that is something that I got an estimate from him a couple of days ago. And that is the first step that I want to do. So until I do that, I really can't go forward to the other parts, because we can't put up the bridge or do anything else until we shore up the embankment.
So let me see. So these are some photos that were submitted with the application initially. Here you're seeing the remnants of the abutments from the original bridge. And I know, here we go. This is a picture of the erosion at the time when the application was submitted. It's definitely been eroding and undercutting more since. So this is the part that was just being discussed as being the first step of the project, and that's because the path comes right by here. So making sure that this stream bank is stable is important for getting to the bridge to be constructed. And yeah, this is a picture of it from different angle. I did meet on site with the group of people identified, and we did talk about, how things would be done. There was discussion about whether or not rocks could be harvested on site for the shoring up of the erosion area. And I did talk with John Hofferley, the town engineer, about that. And he said all rocks should be brought in, as some of the rocks, particularly, near the base of the dam are considered part of the dam, so certainly don't want to be impacting the dam at all with this project. And on site, it was noted that that would not be a problem, so I do have a staff report with some conditions of approval if the commission wants to take a peek at that, or if you have questions for the applicant. I think we're at that point in the review.
I have a question, this is Commissioner Bassman. How long do you expect the shoring up portion of this overall project to take?
Well, as you know, contractors are, it's a long time them getting there, but once he's there, he told me that it should be within 1 week.
And these would just be, I assume, relatively large rocks placed without any kind of glue to hold them together?
Nope, they would be, I'm quoting Mr. Boyd, jammed into the side. And so that they would be secure. So he has plenty of access to plenty of boulders in his shop. And then there would be, as Jamie suggested, rather than just put boulders all the way through where the erosion is, we would just use fill behind the boulders. And we are going to keep it 60 feet and under.
So yeah, there was discussion about using large boulders, I think about 3 to 4 feet in size, primarily, and then using some crushed stone and filter fabric to help hold everything in place, and then potentially putting some soil on top that would be able to vegetate and hold everything together long term.
Why don't we put up that staff report, Jamie?
So for possible conditions for consideration, again, these are just to kind of start the discussion. Pre-construction meeting, final inspection, and those could be broken up into different components. So that, like, one could be for the stream bank stabilization, a separate one for the bridge, and a separate one potentially for the trail connection on the other side, depending on how the project proceeds. As discussed during the October 31st site meeting, filter fabric shall be used with the stream bank stabilization project to help with short and long-term erosion control. Rocks for the bank stabilization shall be brought on site. No rocks from the base of the dam or receiving water shall be used, as they are considered part of the dam system. Equipment disturbance shall be kept to a minimum. Crushed stone shall be used as an anti-tracking measure as needed to prevent erosion. Trails should be kept back from watercourse edges needed to prevent transport of gravel into watercourse and erosion of bank. Any movement of the trail shall be done as to minimize vegetation removal. Location and extent of any clearing shall be discussed on site and approved by the IW agent. The contractor doing the work shall be present for the meeting. And then the standard conditions and general provisions of all permits.
This question about Jamie, do we, I don't know how many of these kind of projects we've had, but do we monitor the success of this erosion bank control? Is that
I
Go ahead.
thought there was something else I wanted to put in here. Not always, but I do think in this case it would be, this is kind of a unique one. I do think it would be good to monitor it in two aspects. One, the stream bank stabilization, and two, they are proposing to make it a gravel trail on the east side of the bridge, and I don't anticipate it to be an issue, but there is a bit of a wet area between the dam and where the trail is, so I think it would also be good to monitor that, just to make sure that there's no erosion concerns developing that would need to be addressed. And that's one of the things that we had discussed on site October 31st. So that certainly could be added as a condition, that the project be monitored for, ongoing and continued success with erosion management.
Commissioner Begeman, just a question. Do we need to have any information about the pole bridge? It's,
We do
ahead.
have some information. We
I'm-
have a construction drawing here. And the town engineer did look at that and he did have a couple of comments which were responded to.
Mr. Bassman, I guess following up on Commissioner Beckham's question, if this is going to be a multi-staged, I guess, project, are we segregating out the shoring up of the bank in terms of tonight's discussion, and then they come back as each parcel of the project needs to be developed?
That's the way I was hoping to do it.
If that's the way that you want to do it, then that's certainly fine. Particularly if you think that more information is needed regarding the pole bridge. I think that if that's the case, given the application materials, that it should be made clear that this approval only pertains to the stream bank stabilization and associated trail improvements
Right.
needed to complete
Right.
that action, because they're gonna need to put down the crushed stone to make sure they're not. That's just, the crushed stone's gonna essentially be an anti-tracking pad to help prevent making a mess, I think.
Okay. I think this is the best. I thought about this. I thought this was the best way to go about it. Because I want to make sure this is done before we move forward.
Commissioner Bassman, then to these, this proposed staff report, do we need to add a number 6? It basically says that the additional components of the overall project would come back for approval by the commission and/or inland wetland agent.
I would say it would have to be commissioned because it's gonna involve crossing the water course, and that's not something I can do.
Without including the inland wetland agent, any discussion on that proposed item number 6? And then I guess, Commissioner Bassman, again, item 7 would be the shoring up of this area would be monitored for the life of the project, or 5 years or whatever, to determine its success. There's probably better words than that, but
For 5 years for success and long-term stabilization.
it's certainly an improvement.
This is Commissioner Boda. Just a quick question. When is this work?
Well,
When would it be done?
that's a great question. If you've dealt with a contractor, so Jim Boyd, I have found in the years dealing with him that his low time, so to speak, for being busy is in the cold weather. So far the verbiage that I've used is when work slows down, which I think is going to be in December, January, which will be good for him coming in there with equipment anyway, so he won't be making any imprints, hopefully, to a minimum. And that was another item as well, just to bring that up. Matt Davidson did ask him to keep the machine smallest possible, not to bring bigger machines in. And so he told me it would be somewhere December, January. That's what I was told verbally. There's nothing in writing as far as the exact time he's going to start.
That would be ideal.
Yep, that's what
Sure. Sometime
Brad?
between.
Go ahead.
Sometime between December and even February.
Right.
It's fine. It's when we start getting into the mud season that it is not great.
Another one I had meant to put in there, that work shall be done during a dry period or when the ground is frozen.
Okay.
Commissioner Basserman. Jamie, do you need to read out 6 and 7 or 6, 7, and 8 so that we can move forward with it?
You want a motion?
If you think you're ready for a motion, then
Is everybody ready for a motion?
Yes.
What was the number? Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve BRIW 45, is it 4581? Yeah,
yes.
4581 Short Rocks Road. With the, can you go back to with the conditions for on the staff report as listed, and also including that this approval pertains to the stream bank restoration and associated trail work that enables access and the restoration of the work. Additional components of the project must come back for commission review. Monitoring reports shall be submitted following the work, and the report shall include success, stabilization, and those reports should happen at completion of the work and then every year for 5 years. And work shall be done during a dry period or frozen period.
Do we have a second?
Commissioner Finaro, I second that.
Any further discussion? We'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Begeman,
Commissioner Begeman, aye.
Commissioner Finaro,
Commissioner Finaro, aye.
Commissioner Omrod,
Commissioner Ormrod, aye.
Commissioner Gokowski,
Commissioner Goklowski, aye.
Commissioner Boda,
Commissioner Boda, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. Okay. Inland wetland,
Thank you.
anything else on this?
Thank you for doing that, for picking up on that project. It's, you know, one of our town assets, and ensuring that there's less erosion and that slows down is positive work for the town.
Well, my contractor hasn't shown up yet, so we'll see. So thanks for the time.
Next up, inland wetland 230606, 537 Harrison Avenue, which is a 6-unit townhouse and associated improvements. Do we have an update on this, Jamie?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, we have a lot of updates. With the most recent one being today, I was very lucky, and the town engineer did have a couple minutes to take a look at it and submitted some response comments. So I am gonna pull up the latest site plan and let the applicant give their presentation, and we can make sure that those comments have been addressed. Just so the commission knows, we are at the end of the time frame for this application. So a decision does need to be made tonight regarding the subject application. Just to kind of refresh the commission, I think this was last discussed at the August meeting, and there was additional information requested, particularly regarding stormwater, some grading, and some additional things as well, but those are the main ones. The plan has been revised. It's no longer a 6 townhouse building. It is now a 3 townhouse building. And with that, I will let the applicant take it.
Good evening, Chuck Mandel, agent for the applicant. Thank you, Jamie. So last time we were here, we had 6 units. It was a very ambitious project. We had a lot of discussions with the lot owner, and we sized this down. We cut the project, just the building in half by 3 units. if you can look to the south, you can see like a cyan or blue area. That's all going to be 9 separate chambers of storm tech. The parking lot will be gravel. We went through the calcs with the town engineer. It supports water quality and water volume. There were 3 comments we received from him today. We were going back and forth, as Jamie said, quite a bit. One was there was a grade that was a typo, which was in the northwest corner of the building. So that grade, I have it revised. It should actually read to be 12.56. We had the 11.4. There was another comment along the southern edge. There's a concrete curb that's going to run along the parking area. And you can see the small basin to the south of the corner of the building that he requested to be dropped. It's at elevation 14.1 now, and we're going to drop that by 0.1, a tenth of an inch to accommodate the 14-foot contour. And the other comment he had was the outlet structure. There was very little cover on top of the pipe. So we looked at that, and if we shorten that pipe by about 10 feet, we believe we'll have the adequate cover for that. The comments were relatively small and very easily addressable. And if you remember early on, we had also had the wetlands flagged originally by Bob Russo. There are no on-site wetlands, but the wetlands to the north of the building. Jamie, if you scroll down a little bit, I think you can read the report. So Bob Russo had looked at the wetlands. It's that blue line with the little triangles. It was actually mostly lawn at this point, and it appeared, and it was filled at one point, wetland, but it was still, it does pond during heavy rain events. The other thing is we also had Dave Lord do a functions and values report for us, and that was early on. And I'm not going to read the entire report. I could, but his last conclusion was, in my professional opinion, the proposed development as presently configured does not represent a likelihood for any measurable adverse environmental impact to the existing functioning of the offsite wetland or long-term functioning at the present level. And his report is also part of the record. He gave a full functions and values of the site of the wetlands. And I will address any comments that the commission has.
Jamie Frederick in the wetland agent, just to clarify, when you were talking about shortening up the pipe,
yes,
would that mean moving this?
We move it towards, yes, we move the outlet closer to the building. Yes, by about 10 feet. Yeah, the other comment, Jamie, was if you look at the southwest corner of the building, you can see there's an elevation of 11.94. That grade also, that was one of the comments that the town engineer had. That's going to be elevation 12.56. There's the PVC pipe is at a 1% grade, so it's 12.25 at the bottom. So that would make that 12.56 running towards the basin. And the reason for that piping is to capture all the roof water that's there.
Mr. Basserman, in the report that was revised, the site report that was revised on November 2nd, when you're doing the hydrology calculations, there's a description of A, B, and C, and they reference what?
Is that the site report?
On sheet 12.
Let's see.
Jamie Frederick in the wetland agent, for clarification, are you talking about the latest report received today, or are you talking about the one that was mailed out to you?
I guess it's the one that was mailed out. It says revised November 2nd.
Yes, this report was just submitted on the 9th.
Okay.
Yeah, we just received revised plans today and a revised report.
Correct. We've been going back and forth with the town engineer to get this resolved. But we do accommodate for stormwater quality and for stormwater volume. That was satisfied by the town engineer.
But, okay, even though I'm looking at, I guess, a week-old report, I still don't understand what A, B, and C is.
I'm trying to look up the report that you would have so that we can figure that out.
Right there. Go down one. There we go, A, B, C.
Those were different hydrographs that we used just to accommodate different stormwater flows. And that was just part of the PR 55 worksheet. They're just different calculations that we ran for routing through the basin.
So does the hydrograph report on page, the one before it, so it must be 11, is that what displayed numerically with the numbers on page 12?
I'm sorry, I had trouble understanding.
On page 11, you've got a post-construction hydrograph number 2, 2 year. And then right after that, it says on page 12, hydrograph number 2, post-construction with the A, B, and C. So do those two sheets go together?
Yes, they do, actually. There's pre-existing pre and post flows on there.
Okay. So Jamie, am I to understand that only staff has the November 9th site report?
It's in the Dropbox, the November 9th one. We did not get, I mean, we got paper copies, I think around 3 o'clock this afternoon, but that did not get to you guys.
But the town engineer did review the most recent one in the Dropbox. And those were his final comments.
So yeah, the 3 comments that we've kind of touched base on from the town engineer are that the invert at the northwest corner of the roof leader system appears to have a typo. That would be this invert elevation of 11.94, which it's been represented to be 12.56. It's still unclear how the parking area drains to the catch basin. Is there a summit within the 15-foot contour? Is the bottom of the curb elevation 14 feet? Top of frame is 14.1. Perhaps it can be lowered to capture the parking lot runoff.
And that is also, it can accommodate to go to 14 to capture that runoff.
So yeah, I think the concern was how the water from the parking lot would be captured by the system or be retained on site and not end up flowing onto the neighboring property.
Right, so that's all gravel parking, and there is a concrete curb. If you look at that note just below where your cursor is, Jamie, there's a 6-inch concrete curb that will contain the water on site.
Yeah, so one of the other questions I guess that I had that I did not get out is this curb going to be along the property line? Is it going to be, because it looks like it extends, it looks like the parking lot doesn't necessarily go all the way to the property line except for in this area for turning around. Would it follow the parking area or would it?
It's along the property line, on our property.
Okay, so that it would be along grass and crushed stone?
Correct.
And then the 18-inch pipe will be out of the ground or have very little cover with the proposed grading. The large pipe size should be verified or the grading revised to allow for proper cover. And I think that was in regards to the comment of shortening this pipe.
That is correct.
Does the commission, I mean, I think the commission has the original proposal with the 6 townhouses. Does the commission want to see what the original proposal was, or just focus on what is being proposed now?
Commissioner Goklowski, what was the original total square footage of living space of the 6 units versus what's the total square footage of the living space now?
It was double. So proposed now is 2160. And now it was 4,320. We had the stormwater to the north. And so we cut that in half, and we did move the stormwater to the south.
Okay, so each unit is approximately 700 square feet.
Yes. Yep.
Jamie Frederick, and the wetland agent, just to remind the commission what the application kind of originally looked like. There
Yeah.
was a driveway going along this northwestern property line with additional parking in the rear and 6 units. And so the project, we don't have to spend a whole lot of time dwelling on what was proposed, but I just wanted to kind of remind the commission what the project looked like initially. So now we've got the 6 units and all of the parking is up front. So that eliminated some of my questions and comments regarding the driveway adjacent to the property line relative to its proximity to the wetland. And we've got some additional information regarding the proposed drainage, or the proposed grading and the proposed drainage. I would certainly think that regarding the verbal comments that have been made, addressing the town engineer's comments, certainly if the commission might want to consider having a condition of approval that revised plans addressing those concerns must be approved by the town engineer and the inland wetland agent prior to start of work. I do have a staff report. It's prepared for a different version of the plans, so it doesn't include a condition along the lines of what I just said, but I would recommend that if that's something the commission's looking to do.
Mr. Bassman, are there any plantings in the plan?
The entire back area, the entire area to the north is just lawn. There were no proposed plantings, but we were just going to leave it as is.
There are a couple of trees to be removed, but yeah, there's no proposed plantings.
This Commissioner Bassman, Jim, did you say at the beginning that this is Fisher cut date time?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch what you said.
On this?
I'm sorry, you cut out again.
Did you say at the beginning of the discussion here that this is at the end of its time frame?
That is correct. Sorry.
Extensions
Yeah.
can't.
A decision would have to be made tonight. I mean, I think there's a week if the commission really wants to have a special meeting and request a continuance, but I don't know that that's gonna get us.
So that we've already gone beyond the first 65 days, obviously, with this being.
Correct. This application was for receipt, I believe, in either June or July. I think it was submitted in June for receipt in July. 1 minute, let me pull up my staff report because it goes over that.
Well, the wetland date is 6/6, so June.
Right. So it was submitted in June, but whether it was for receipt in June or July, I don't remember. It was for receipt July. So our max decision currently has to be made tonight, or the absolute latest is November 19th.
You had a staff report that you can share
Oh
with
yes,
us?
sorry, I'm seeing it, but you're not. Wait, are you seeing it?
I got a deadline,
Okay. So let's see. Got the survey, site history. There was previously an application for a duplex, which was withdrawn, and this application was subsequently submitted. Wetland delineation, we've already gone over. There's no wetlands on site per inspection by Bob Russo. And a wetland functions and values report was submitted dated July 24th, 2023. So this is a little messy because I've got my initial comments, and then the comments in red were responses after the August meeting. And then the blue was my comments to the initial revision, I believe, where it was reduced down to 3 units from 6, but there's been subsequent revisions since then. So erosion controls, the symbology have been labeled. Revised plans appear to address. No change. We did, I think, get a little bit more information on the construction sequence. Stormwater. I think that this has subsequently, for the most part, been addressed. We did get a perk rate.
the infiltration.
This has changed because they moved the stormwater system to the front parking area.
Mhm.
The conveyance of this is changed too, so this is not relevant. These arrows were removed. This has been provided. This is no longer relevant because they moved the system again. This is what I was talking about before with the driveway running adjacent to the wetland. It doesn't extend back that far anymore, so it's not a high concern anymore. Same thing. Cross section was provided. Again, moving the driveway away from the wetland makes transport of driveway material slightly less concerning. It would have to go through a decent amount of lawn before it would be an issue.
Commissioner Goklowski, Jamie, quick question. At one point during this application process, wasn't there a lack of response on the applicant that we were waiting for information? And there was a 30-day period that went by that there was no response to you?
So after the August meeting, so I had requested that some information be submitted for the August meeting, which was then supported by the commission at the August meeting. And we did not receive revised materials until the end of October, October 30th, it looks like.
And the revised material was changing the original application from 6 units to 3 units?
That is correct. It also changed the proposed stormwater management location and size.
So maybe I'm misreading this, or maybe I'm not right. Shouldn't have that original application been withdrawn and a new application submitted to the commission? Because it's such a major revision.
This is Chuck Mandel, agent for the applicant. Most of that actually reducing that was based on staff comments, and we did talk to the developer, and it took a little bit of doing to get that cut in half. So that was all part of the original application to reduce impact to the wetlands.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. So to clarify, just just because I'm not sure how people are going to interpret that comment. I didn't tell them to scale back the project. I asked them to address the stormwater management, and this appears to be how they addressed it. I think that given the fact that the overall scope of the project is less rather than more within the same footprint, it's fair for it to be considered part of the same application. Given the timing of the submission relative to the time frame to review the application, it certainly puts the commission in a difficult position. But I think the commission would probably want to consider scaling back a project to be generally a good thing relative to wetland impact. Generally speaking, not always per se, but so it did not for me initially scream new application based on that information. However, like I said, it is difficult, I recognize, for the commission and, you know, for staff reviewing it the day of the meeting, and these are pretty significant changes, you know, reviewing 2 weeks going into the final review.
It's Commissioner Basserman. Jamie, you went through quite a bit of detail on the comments and the response to those comments. You know, at this point in time, it sounds like there are no outstanding comments from staff that have not been addressed. Is that correct?
Well, Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, I would say that we've got some verbal responses to the 3 comments that the town engineer made, which we were discussing earlier today. I would certainly want to see the revisions to the plans. But I think that could probably be accommodated as a condition of approval if the commission was comfortable with that. With the understanding that it should be reviewed by the town engineer and the inland wetland agent. Those comments primarily will pertain to making sure that the stormwater from the parking lot area is treated by being captured by the stormwater system, and making sure that the neighboring property is not impacted. So, I mean, and then also the correction of the invert elevation. That one's pretty straightforward though, and has been verbally addressed on the record. So, I don't know that they're extremely high concerns specifically relative to the wetland and the comments that those things can be addressed. I would just want to make sure that they're addressed to the satisfaction of the town engineer. And they should be shown on the site plan to make sure that they're obviously implemented as intended.
Commissioner Basserman again on this. Do we have a staff report that outlines possible conditions?
We do, with the exception of that one additional recommended condition of approval that I'm just thinking, okay, so yeah, so the additional recommendation of approval would be the plan shall be revised to address town engineer comments emailed on November 9th, 2023 to the satisfaction of the town engineer and duly authorized inland wetland agent prior to start of site work. And then the ones that I had drafted previously are pre-construction meeting, initial erosion control inspection, final inspection. Surveyor shall mark out everything to make sure it's properly located and constructed, and as built submitted at the end of the project, in confirmation that grading and stormwater system is consistent with this approval. And then 3 is a standard condition based on state statute change that essentially the permit is not effective until planning and zoning approval as applicable is granted, standard conditions of approval and general provisions of all permits.
Maybe this Commissioner Basserman, could you read that initial condition of approval that was, I think, was highlighted in yellow or above that?
Oh, sorry, that was just making sure the commission knew that a decision has to be made. I also mentioned just, you know, you could continue to November 19th, but I don't think anyone wants to do that. So again, these are just recommendations. The commission can add, remove, or have other discussions.
Can you articulate again the information that the town engineer and you would approve before this project would get approved?
Yeah, so one is pretty straightforward. It's a typo and that correction has been verbally addressed, so that's straightforward. That's again just correcting this invert elevation for the roof drain so that it pitches into the system. Second one is clarifying how this area is going to be captured by the system, because right now the grading is a little bit unclear. And it was mentioned that this catch basin frame could be lowered 1/10 of a foot to help accommodate that. I don't know if the town engineer would be looking for some additional clarification, because he was also asking about whether there's like a local high point relative to this 15-foot contour. So again, basically the concern is just making sure that all of the stormwater from the parking area is captured and goes through the system that is provided. And 3 is making sure that this pipe from the catch basin to the outlet is properly buried without impacting the grading in a way that will impact surface drainage. Because I think there was a concern that part of the pipe might be above grade, which obviously is not ideal.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Does any commissioner feel uncomfortable with I guess, conditional approval for this project? Such that the 3 items that Jamie just went over would need to be reviewed by both herself and the town engineer before permit would be granted?
Chairman, this is Commissioner Boda. I wasn't here for, this is my first hearing of the application, so I'm gonna ultimately abstain from any discussion on it tonight.
This is Commissioner Begemon. It sounds to me like the plans are not exactly finalized, but that those details can be finalized and be approved by the town engineer and inland wetland agent. So I am comfortable with approving it with that, additional condition of approval that Jamie read.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, kind of to expand on that. Generally speaking, I don't like conditions of approval for revised plans, but I think the specifics of what we're looking for to be revised is very clear. So it's not just a revised drainage plan needs to be submitted or a revised erosion control plan. We're identifying specifically the aspects that need to be adjusted and what the end goal is. And it's not like, it's not a huge substantial change. So as long as outside of those items, the commission is satisfied with what they're seeing, I think that it would be a reasonable condition.
Somebody want to frame a motion for this project?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, I just have one more comment or thought for the commission. There currently is no landscape plan, as we've discussed. Ideally, it would be kind of nice to see something. I understand it's not proposed right now. I did mention that it might be a good idea. That being said, I don't know if planning and zoning is going to require a landscape plan. Would another thing the commission might want to consider is whether they're okay with staff reviewing landscape plan should one be submitted, or if they want that to come back to the commission.
Chuck Mandel, agent for the applicant. We will certainly provide a landscape plan if it could be done under wetland agent authorization.
This is Commissioner Ormrod. Would we have to, I mean, we would have to know what that entailed.
So Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. So I think given the fact the wetlands are off-site, all of the plantings would certainly be outside of the wetland area. I think the commission could specify a couple, you could say using native plantings, if that made it easier to, or another option would be to kind of give it an out in case it's something I'm not comfortable reviewing. You could say reviewed by the Inland Wetland Agency unless they determine that it needs to go to the commission for review.
Commissioner Goklowski, when we did the site visit a few months ago, the proposed building area, when we walked it, there was some trees and a lot of mulch in the particular area, and the mulch was actually very wet, and I believe we went in the summertime where it was relatively dry. My main concern is the property line adjacent alongside to where the inland wetlands is, that there should be some type of planting along that whole strip so to protect possible overflow into the wetlands and creating more problems. That's my only big thing. I appreciate the fact that they went from 6 units to 3 units. Just, you know, at the 12th hour, changing the plans is really not fair to the commission. So, but with any proposed changes, I don't have a problem with between our agent and the town engineer proposing. So.
Yeah, I would rather the commission review the landscape plan. However, I also would rather see that there is a landscape plan. So to that end, that's why I recommended potentially having something that would enable the agent to review a landscape plan to kind of help encourage the applicant to do that, knowing that they wouldn't necessarily have to go through another inland wetland meeting to provide potentially, you know, I mean, I wouldn't sign off on a plan that I didn't think was beneficial to the wetland, but provide beneficial plantings to the wetland that also probably would be potentially beneficial to the property owner because, you know, there was some indication of high groundwater. So removing those trees are taking up a lot of water right now, and they're going to stop doing that once they're removed. So it might become even wetter. So replacing some sort of vegetation there might help keep what is proposed to be, you know, lawn a little bit drier for them.
Yeah, Chuck Mandel, once again, I will have either Dave Lord or Bob Russo, the certified soil scientist, prepare a landscape plan to address that. And you will certainly have that within the next week or two, along with the other changes that you were looking for.
But wait a minute, I thought we had a discussion that said that basically this thing had to be buttoned up by November 19th, or we're out of time.
So Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, I think to accommodate that comment, the commission, again, as a condition of approval, unfortunately, could, and I think that gives the commission a qualifier that makes you a little bit more confident in letting it be an agent review. Say a landscaping plan per discussion at the November 9th meeting shall be submitted to be completed by a wetland scientist for review by the inland wetland agent. So you know that it's being done by a wetland scientist, so you know the plantings are going to be ideal plantings to protect or enhance that wetland area.
I think that's the
Again,
only
this
way.
is not the way that we like to do things. we are up against the time clock, so. I mean. Commission has to decide if. You feel comfortable approving with conditions. Or. Alternatively. Denying based on incomplete application. So. It's not ideal, but I think the commission really has to consider. What
This is-
overall-
This is Commissioner Begemon, I think. I still feel, even with these, in so to speak, things that haven't quite been completed, that they can be completed and given to, the agent for approval and brought back to us if needed. And in terms of quote incomplete application and a reason not to proceed, it's very different from what we had earlier today, when there's a landowner who hasn't given permission for something, an abutting landowner, versus an improvement like cutting down trees and replacing trees it should have been thought about clearly, but it will be thought about. A soil scientist has already said that this isn't going to worsen in the wetland stuff. So I still think that we can move forward on this. And if no one opposes that, I'll put forth, I can put forth a motion if people think they're ready. If you can put up your staff report.
Sure.
Commissioner Warmrod, I'm in agreement with Commissioner Begeman. Yeah, so long as the conditions include all of the town engineer comments be addressed, revisions be reviewed. I would love to see a condition of approval with wetland plantings, especially along that western border where the wetlands are on that side of the property. If that helps, putting forth a motion.
And I'm sorry, I don't have the IW number.
Commissioner Begemon, Matt, if you're ready to do the motion, you can do it because you added those things.
I'll give it a shot.
Great.
If I'm looking at, I think it's the right staff report. It's the one that's marked up. So yeah, I'll make a motion to approve IW number 230606, 3537 Harrison Avenue. The proposed construction of new residential structure with 3 townhouses, with all the notes, revised plans, reduces the proposed project from 6 to 3, et cetera, if that works. With the conditions for approval, that the town engineer's comments be addressed to the satisfaction of the town engineer and or the inland wetland agent. The revised site plans be approved to the satisfaction of the town engineer and wetland agent prior to the start of the construction. An additional condition that a landscape plan be submitted and approved by submitted by a certified soil scientist and approved by the town wetland agent prior to the start of the construction, along with standard conditions. That's all I got.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Can we add, I guess, the staff report updated as of 11/2?
Get a second and then have discussion.
I will second that. With the comment that we identify the staff report that was updated as of 11/2/23. I think that includes your group comments.
Okay. Commissioner Ormrod, are you,
Yes, I'll accept that.
So there is a second. Any further discussion? Any other friendly amendments? All right, we'll take a roll call. Commissioner Begeman,
Commissioner Begelman, aye.
Commissioner Amrod,
Commissioner Ormrod, aye.
Commissioner Gopowski, Commissioner Gopowski, you're muted.
Commissioner Goklowski, aye.
Commissioner Boda,
Commissioner Boda, I abstain.
Commissioner Finaro,
Commissioner Finaro, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye.
Thank you very much.
You know, I guess one thing, Jamie, while the footprint, I guess, was certainly a reduction, I guess the other issue that we, I guess, have to keep in front of our head as we look at the future is, you know, this was not a minor adjustment. It was also a pretty substantial adjustment and at the last minute. And so maybe your consideration of whether this is a revision or a new application needs to take into account for a major revision this late in the game.
I think that could have been a consideration the commission made. I wasn't comfortable making that call though, given that it was a reduction. And I certainly think, you know, regarding time to review substantial revised documentation, I think the applicant was very lucky in the sense that I had time to look at the plans today and the town engineer had time to look at the plans today. Otherwise, I don't know what would have happened.
Thank you all. All right. Inland Wetland 230901, 329 East Main Street, also known as 325 East Main Street, mixed-use residential development. Jamie, can you bring us up to date on this?
So Jamie Frederick and the Wetland agent, this application was tabled at the last meeting because the applicant was revising the site plans. They've submitted revised plans, which have been reviewed by the town engineer and myself, and they've submitted a revised plan as of yesterday, which addressed comments from the fire marshal. So I do think that there's a little bit of a question here as to whether or not the commission has all of the information they need. The revised plans does include access for a fire truck behind the building, which is very close to the wetland. And unfortunately, we did not receive a revised erosion control plan, which reflects the revised limits of disturbance. So with those initial comments, I do have a staff report prepared too, by the way, which was prepared prior to the revised plans per the fire marshal's comments. So with that said, I can hand it over to the applicant unless the commission has any other status question. Oh, one other thing. The application either needs to be determined upon tonight or the commission needs to request a consent to a continuance to the December 14th meeting. Which given the revisions, I think would be reasonable if the commission feels it's needed.
Mm-hmm.
So,
You ready? Okay, Mr. Chairman?
You're on.
Okay, thank you. My name is John Nuff. I'm an attorney with an office at 135 Broad Street in Milford. I'm here tonight on behalf of CP Branford LLC, which is the contract purchaser of the property at 329. It's also known as 345 East Main Street. That consists of 13 3/4 acres. You all know it as a location as of the former movie theater and Walgreens. We're proposing to convert the theater to a self-storage building, an important adaptive reuse, maintain the Walgreens, construct a multi-family residential building, and also a small pad, which will consist of a coffee shop, restaurant, and probably an urgent care. As Jamie mentioned, the application was received in September. Subsequent to that, we had a number of communications with our neighbors, email, phone calls, and our last exchange was a visit on site. We had originally proposed 2 residential buildings that exceeded the height requirement, and we have submitted a variance application. After very pleasant and productive conversations with those neighbors, we agreed to reduce the height of the building or the buildings and combine the 2 buildings into one, which led to the delaying our presentation from last month to this month. So the important thing is that the change from 2 buildings to 1 did not change anything from a wetland perspective, and that's a good thing because we are still not proposing any work within any resource, any wetland or water course. We are not proposing any further encroachment toward any wetland or water course. We're still reducing impervious coverage. As Jamie mentioned, there has been a little bit of back and forth with the fire marshal. I don't, and John Schmitz, who's our engineer, can clarify this, but it's not to allow a fire truck behind the building, but just a flattened out the area so that firefighters can erect a ladder in a safe manner. So we just flattened out the slope a little bit, and John Schmitz can walk you through that. But the rest of the things I think are fairly minor in nature, and I'm not disagreeing with Jamie, but I think we can go through the proposal. I think you're pleased when you saw the application back in September when it was first received. Nothing substantive has changed from a wetland perspective. And then let's see where we end up and see if we can get through this tonight. If we can't, we understand. But if there's an opportunity to do so, with that, here's John Schmitz, and also with us this evening is our soil scientist, Megan Simcoe.
Hi, thanks, John. My name is John Schmitz. I'm a civil engineer and project manager with BL Companies, 355 Research Parkway, Meriden, Connecticut. And I will walk you through a brief description and outline of the plans. Jamie, I'm going to share screen. Is that okay here? I need control.
Yeah, 1 minute. Sorry.
Yeah. Yep, no problem.
My bar is over the button that lets me let you share. All right, you should be good.
Okay, let's see. Okay, can everybody see my screen? I should be looking at a picture of the existing conditions plans, the survey that was done. So
Yeah.
again, existing site.
Could you make it a little bigger?
Sure. Let's see. So again, the existing site is approximately 13.75 acres total. It's already developed. Out of that 13.75 acres, approximately 2.25 acres is wetlands. So just to orient you with the plan, Route 1 Post Road is along here. It's the left side of the site, East Main Street. Walgreens is this smaller building, rectangular building at the bottom of the plan. This little star would represent the driveway, the traffic signal that already exists at the driveway. The larger rectangular building is the existing cinema. Zane Cycles is right off here across the street. The interchange entrance highway, entrance ramp to 95 is right here to the north. The green line that you see on the plan along our easterly boundary and along that cuts through the south part of the site and wraps around. The green line represents the limits of wetlands. That's the existing wetlands where they are today. And as you know, in regards to the parking, we have parking throughout the site around both buildings along not only Walgreens, but as well as the theater. 2 main points of access. I already pointed out the signalized interchange access at this point, our main drive, and then we have another right-in driveway to Walgreens at this location. So for the most part, the site's already developed. What we're going to be doing is keeping both of these buildings, but we're going to supplement the property with some additional buildings, and I will share that with you here. So this is a rendered plan of what we propose to do. Again, Walgreens down here, the lower left, that stays unchanged. The theater building, large rectangular building at this location will also remain unchanged. The use will change to a storage building. There'll be some facade improvements, but for the most part, the improvements to that building are all to the interior. The restaurant building cafe would be at this location here. There would be a drive-through to that. And then this L-shaped building would be the proposed residential building. The blue line that you see along here that I'm kind of outlining represents the upland review area. Obviously, it parallels the wetland line. Wetlands here is identified by this very light green color to the south of the site. It does wrap around to the west, and then also follows a drainage area between our site and the entrance ramp to 95 all along this area on our easterly boundary all the way up to this point. And again, you can see here where we've added some green space to the property. We've added actually over an acre, 1.03 acres of green space. So we've reduced the impervious area by removing parking and adding green space. We've added some green space at this location here. Again, get adjacent to the theater, green space here. And then two other areas closer to Walgreens where there are some parking areas that are being removed. One area here, as well as another parking bay here that will be converted to green space. So again, overall, we're increasing green space by 1 acre. And what that allows us to do is to reduce the amount of runoff. So with regards to the stormwater runoff, that's generated by impervious surfaces. And so by increasing the amount of green space, reducing the pavement, we're also reducing the amount of runoff. We're reducing not only the peak rate of runoff, but also the overall volume of runoff that's flowing to the wetlands. I'll just share with you the grading plan to show you where some of that stormwater runoff is today. So in this plan, I've highlighted 3 areas where stormwater is discharging today. One location is a flared end at this location towards the highway on the west side of the development. Another location here at the southeast corner, and another location here a little further to the south. All 3 of those are existing stormwater outlets from the existing site and the existing system that collects stormwater runoff. Today, runoff is circuited through hydrodynamic separators that discharge at those locations. We'll be maintaining those same locations. We're going to utilize the same hydrodynamic separators that are there today and maintaining those outlets. So there will be no direct impacts to the wetlands. We'll be maintaining those same outlets without the need to go further into the wetlands. In addition to that, the parking area today along the southerly boundary here, where the existing curb line is, there's a metal beam rail that runs along the parking area, as well as a fence. The fence actually runs along our property line with 95 at this location, and then that fence line kind of delineates our parking here. The fence and the guide rail are going to be maintained. We're not removing them. We're keeping them in the same location. So again, we're not pushing closer to the wetlands. We're pulling away from the wetlands with the development and increasing the green space. And while I've got this plan up, I just talk about a couple of quick things. So each of these 3 outlets currently has a hydrodynamic separator that provides for 80% total suspended solid removal. And we'll be maintaining those throughout the development and in the future. There are documents on file within the wetlands to show that the current owner of the property has been maintaining and pumping those units out. So they are operating properly and functioning as they were intended to. And again, with the reduction in impervious area, there'll actually be less flow going into them in the future. And we've designed the site so that we'd be able to maintain, split the flows adequately to maintain the same flow rate to each of those structures without increasing flows anywhere. And I want to highlight 1 or 2 things. We also talked about as erosion control plan. So one of the things we brought to our attention that we had mentioned with the last submission was how we were going to provide some outlet control or outlet protection. And I just wanted to clarify what that meant, because Jamie had mentioned how we had submitted some revised plans. So again, existing outlet at this location, and the original erosion control plan that we provided did not show any outlet protection there. So we thought it was prudent to just add in some temporary siltation fence around that flared end. Just in case something happened during construction. We have inlet protection at all the catch basins, which is basically a silt sack. It should keep sediment out of the catch basins during construction. At the same time, the hydrodynamic separators will still be in operation. We just thought it prudent to add in that silt fence at the outlet, just as a last line of defense at the wetlands. And so what we did is on all 3 outlets on the revised plan, we added that silt fence at all 3 outlets. And that was the main revision there. It was, again, just a last line of defense to protect the wetlands at those 3 outlets. Additionally,
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, before you continue, sorry. What's the revision date on that site plan? Because I don't think the copy submitted to us included that.
I think this plan is, yes, this is 1108.
Okay, so the revised plan said that was.
This plan was emailed to you this afternoon, I think.
Oh.
We just submitted it this afternoon.
Okay, I don't think I caught that.
Okay.
Yeah. Commissioner Bassman, the one that you sent out that we got either the day before yesterday is dated 10/27.
The 1027 plan did not show these 3 silt fences at the outlets. So again, we felt it was prudent just to add those in. They weren't required, but it just seemed like, you know, a last line of defense. We should do it while we're out there anyway. And again, they're temporary. After the site's done, they'd be removed. But just to go back up a little bit, I'll show you the color plan again. I just wanted to address one of the items that we discussed earlier about the fire marshal. So one of the things the fire marshal requested, besides a truck turning plan to make sure his trucks could circulate around the building, which we did provide him that plan, but he was concerned that with the residential building, how he would have access to the rear of the building and how he could have firefighters address the side of the building by putting ladders up. Now, on this side of the building, you can see today, this gray line that's here, that's the edge of the existing parking lot. You can see all these vertical lines, those are parking spaces today. So the existing building will be about 5 feet inside of that parking area where the curb line is today. And from that existing curb line, there's a slope down to the fence line, down to the wetlands. It varies in steepness, but from the building to the property line, which is where the fence is roughly 20 to 22 feet. So the concern from the fire marshal was, if my guys go back there and they try to set up a ladder, do I have a level area to do that? And the answer was no. We had a slope, and clearly setting up a ladder on a slope might not be the safest thing to do. So to address his concern, we added this retaining wall, which is this white line you see running parallel to the property line of the building. That would be a very small wall. It's about 3 feet high at its height, its maximum height, and it just provides us to it provides the opportunity for us to level this area out so that it's not a slope. It's about 12, 15 feet away from the building, and that'll allow, under emergency circumstances, the firefighter got back there and needed to put a ladder against the building, they would have a stable, level footing to be able to do that. So that was that change. And of course, by putting that retaining wall there, it necessitated a shift in the limit of disturbance. Now, good.
Mr. Schmidt, this
Yes.
is Schmidt, sorry. This is Commissioner Boda. Just as you're pointing at that space, are there exits from that side of the building? You said it's residential. I'm wondering if that's potentially like backyard space that people are going to be wanting to utilize as kind of a, I don't know, where you have barbecues or whatever out of the back.
As far as I know, there are no exits to the building from that side. Now, Attorney Nuff, do you have any? I'm not aware of any doors on that side of the building. John, you're muted if you're talking. There you go.
better than that. No, even in the previous iteration with that slope down in the wetlands, there was no opportunity for people to do like a patio or a grill or outdoor space or anything like that. So no, that is not going to be an amenity space. I mean, that's one of the reasons why you can see on the blow up that Schmitty has up on the screen, the outdoor amenity area of about 9,500 square feet. That's designed to provide that outdoor space, not the area behind the building, directly adjacent to the 95 ground.
Jamie Frederick, and the wetland agent, while we're kind of paused or interrupted. I did also send over the revised plan with the one building to the building official specifically regarding egress, asking if there would need to be doors and or sidewalks back there, and it didn't seem like there would need to be. So I wouldn't expect that that would necessarily have to revise based on the building department review. And then I also just want to clarify that I did not see the email come in with the erosion control plan, which does address the revised location of the silt fence for the retaining wall. And also, I'm sorry for misrepresenting regarding the fire comments earlier. Certainly the additional information that's been provided helps make that revision make more sense. So there is a revised erosion control plan, which does address the concern I had identified earlier.
I just wanted to point out another thing. So there's this gray gravel drive shown here along the edge of the parking area here. So that serves two purposes. It was designed in order to provide emergency access again to the fire truck, so the fire truck could get to this side of the building. So it would be a gravel drive here, but it serves a dual purpose because one of the outlets to the storm system is located here. And so this is where some of the hydrodynamic separators are located. So obviously those have to be maintained and pumped out on a regular basis. So this also provides as an access path to a truck to get back there to maintain that hydrodynamic separator at that location. So again, just a couple of numbers just to share with you again. Increasing green space by 1.03 acres. The site was designed in accordance, as far as drainage goes, with the Connecticut Water Quality Manual, and as well as the Connecticut guidelines for soil erosion sediment control. And I'll just show you real quickly. I think I showed you the erosion control plan again, how the site was designed, laid out, access at this location again. One of the benefits of having a site that's already paved is that as we go into construction, we can preserve some of those paved areas and limit the amount of soil disturbance. The main soil disturbance that's associated with the project will be the construction of the residential building. The proposed grades for the rest of the project have been, anybody familiar with the site, it's fairly level. So we were able to take advantage of that with our design and keep the parking areas relatively close to where they are today. So not a lot of cuts and fills or grading going on with regards to the site. Again, the buildings don't have foundations, or rather don't have basements. Clearly they have foundations, but so there wouldn't be a lot of earthwork going on the site to begin with. So, which helps certainly for erosion control purposes and sediment. I'm going to turn things over to Sagan, who's our soil scientist, and can share screen. He could talk a little bit about the erosion, or rather the wetlands that were identified, some of the functions and values he saw when he's out there. I'd be happy to answer any questions at the end or whenever you'd like to ask. And I'm going to stop share now so that
you can share yours. Keep sharing that screen. I think
sure.
Probably the easiest thing to do. For the record, this is Sagan Simcoe. I am the soil scientist and wetland scientist for BL Companies. John already has gone over the wetlands pretty succinctly. But so basically the wetlands consist of one contiguous area. As was mentioned, it's mostly on the south side of the developed area. There is one stream that was delineated that is kind of south centrally located. Thanks, John, for zooming in on it there. It's an intermittent stream. It's barely defined. It basically comes out into the wetland and disperses pretty quickly. So as I mentioned, there's just one contiguous wetland area. The functions and values of this wetland include groundwater and discharge and recharge, stormwater retention, sediment retention, nutrient retention, and also wildlife habitat. It is a somewhat sizable area of wetlands, so there's a good chance for wildlife to utilize this area. Nutrients and sediments from the adjacent commercial properties, as well as the roadways, are absorbed in this wetland area, as well as the vegetation. The wetland collects the stormwater discharge from the adjacent developed area, including the nearby parking lots and roadways. So that is a major function of this wetland. It reduces flood risk to the surrounding properties, and it also provides a contrasting habitat to the surrounding commercial and upland forested areas that are also surrounding this wetland. Stream 1, the functions and values are very similar. Groundwater recharge, discharge, flood flow alteration, and wildlife habitat. So those are the functions and values. Its main source of hydrology, I know it was mentioned that there's a little bit of a reduction in stormwater that's actually being directed towards the wetland. This wetland, the hydrology inputs are primarily groundwater. It's fed by a high groundwater table in this area, primarily. Of course, there's some stormwater inputs to it. So yeah, it's kind of the ins and outs of the wetland, if anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Sagan. Mr. Chairman, we're happy to answer any questions. I think, given the size of the property of close to 14 acres, this is about as straightforward of a wetland application as Schmidt said. The site's already been paved, the stormwater system's already been installed, it's been maintained. It's still in accordance with the DEP manual. There's really nothing going wrong there today. I think we're trying to make whatever modest improvements we can, and happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Bassman, I have, I guess, one. Given the amount of green that was added, the building, it's certainly reducing the amount of parking space that's there today. What's the reduction in total volume of the water that's on the site?
So those numbers I'll read off to you. They're contained in our stormwater manual that was provided. And so we looked at stormwater for multiple storms. We looked at the 2-year, the 10-year, the 25, and the 100-year. So we looked at various points. Obviously, it discharges at, as I explained, at 3 different positions or 3 different locations throughout the site. And I don't know if you'd like to get into particulars on a percentage basis. We're reducing the volume by 6% in a 2-year storm, 3.99% in a 10-year storm, 3.3% in a 25-year storm, and 2.6 reduction in a 100-year storm. So, and just in cubic feet numbers, the 100-year storm, that's a reduction of roughly 12,000 cubic feet of water spread out over those three outlets. So that's 12,000 square feet of water that gets into the ground through green space and not discharged through those through the outlets.
Now, those revised hydrology numbers, Jamie, is that in the Dropbox? Because the information on basically the photographs and that kind of stuff was back in August that I had. August 14th. So do we have an updated?
Jamie's muted. There you go.
All right. There are revised materials available in the Dropbox regarding that. Let me see. It would be item number 18. Yeah, 18.
Yeah. And page 9 of the stormwater management report is the chart that I was just reading from. That's table 8, which is on page 9.
Thank you.
the commission would like, I can steal the screen share and put it up.
Yeah. Yeah, so what I was just referring to is the very bottom row where it says change percent across the bottom. And you can see that the columns vertical, there's the 2-year, 10-year, 25, and the 100-year that we looked at. And then we, again, looked at the overall numbers. The big numbers are in cubic feet. So obviously, I think we're looking at roughly 7.5 gallons per cubic foot. But, you know, when you start talking about 100-year storms, 25-year storms over, 13.5 acres, it's pretty significant number. And again, a reduction of 12,000 cubic feet of runoff.
Commissioner Bascom, I guess, given the existing stormwater system, is there any inspection done of that system to determine that there are no faults that need to be addressed at this new project?
Right. So there's actually a question that the town engineer asked, and Schmitty, feel free to jump in. And Jamie helpfully pointed him to the website where you can find that information to know or learn that the system's been properly maintained, and then so he then rescinded that comment.
Yeah, and in addition to that, the site's developed. There's an existing system there. We're probably going to replace 50% of the piping, obviously, to make way for the new buildings and some of the new low points that we're creating. But as far as the outlets go, the water quality devices, that's all staying. It's currently operational, and we'll be using that and maintaining it in the future.
Yeah, I wasn't concerned about the outlets because of the comment that you had addressed. It was the pipes to get it to the outlet that I was concerned about.
Right.
This is Commissioner Begemon. I have a question about the retaining wall for the soil scientist and for the, so to speak, hardening of that water course. Instead of that water that's behind there, at the northern edge of the property, you're building a retaining wall so the fire people can get in there. But by building that retaining wall, the water that's behind the retaining wall doesn't have as much room to expand upwards toward what used to be the parking lot if it needs to. So can somebody address how that may impact the wetlands if that increases the flow of that water through there and therefore increased erosion, et cetera?
Well, I'll just John Schmitz, from an engineering standpoint, the wall is roughly 5 feet or so away from the edge of the wetlands. Along the northerly border here, the wetlands is coincident with the existing chain link fence. And again, the fence was put in not only to create that level pad, but because it's about 5 feet up the hill, we're at I'm guessing 18 inches or so higher than the edge of the wetlands. So for water to say the wetlands were completely full of water, they need to be full. And maybe Sagan could address this. The wetlands aren't standing water; it's the soils that are there. But if they were ponding water, the water level would have to rise 18 inches higher just to get to the bottom of that wall. And the lawn area between the building and the wall, that's all pitching towards the wetlands. So any rain that's in that area would still run off into the wetlands as it does today. And Sagan, if you could address maybe just if the wetlands are holding water today at all.
Yeah, this is Sagan Simcoe from BL Companies. Yeah, as was just mentioned, this isn't like a standing water location. This is mostly just saturated soils with a little bit of hydrophytic vegetation. It's it's more or less a drainage ditch in this location that's pretty deeply incised. So, like John mentioned, you would have to have an absolute deluge for the water in this area to rise upslope enough to even encounter this retaining wall. Like you mentioned, it's sloped towards the wetland to the south, and any flow will pass through there quickly without really having a substantial rise in water water level in that location along the eastern side there.
Okay, thank you. I recall being in that parking lot and having to walk around while I was waiting for some car work to be done. And as I recall, in that northeastern edge, there was a bunch of water in the wetland. So I just thought it'd be worth asking.
Well, yeah, I mean, it can definitely, again, this is Sagan Simcoe from BL Companies. I mean, after rain events, I'm sure it's capable of holding water, but I think it has enough water holding capacity after a large rain event that it would not risk overflowing that wall at all. It would preferentially flow to the south and join the larger wetland area.
Mr. Bassman, and just for clarification, I guess as you talked about the greening areas, is that to be considered lawn, or are there other things other than lawn that qualifies as a green space?
That area is proposed to be lawn. Jamie, could you go back? You just showed a very good picture of what it looks like today. The bottom picture there, so you can see the edge of the parking. I believe, yeah, that's looking. You see Zane Cycles in the far distance. So that's the edge of the parking today. You can see the slope down. Some of the vegetation has grown beyond the fence line, and so that's the area that we'd be placing the 2 to 3 foot high wall at, so that we can level it. The majority of the vegetation that's there would be maintained. It wouldn't surprise me if we did trim it back to the fence line, some of the overgrowth, but that's a good representation of what it looks like today.
And Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure that Smitty answered the question you were asking. Were you asking about the additional green space throughout the site, or just behind this building?
Well, it was noted that because we're using more green space, that there's more absorption, less runoff, etc. I was just curious on whether they were all lawn or whether there were different components that made up quote green space.
So yeah, there's a mix. So, and this is the landscape plan. The bulk of the larger areas would be lawn areas. We're certainly providing additional interior landscape islands required for in the parking areas. So the landscaping islands that are interior and along the perimeter of the parking area would certainly have shade trees, shrubs. There'd be foundation plantings along the buildings. But for instance, the outdoor amenity space, you could see where we've got some trees and lawn areas. There's some shrubs, some other shrubs to the north of the residential building. Right, you see there's a row of shrubbery there between the building and the wetlands that's not there today. So we'd be improving that. And then
in the islands in the parking area are low shrubs or
most what you're seeing is trees. Those would be shade trees with mulch or lawn area on those islands. And then two other larger areas for green space are toward Walgreens, where we're removing a number of parking spaces and just replacing them with green space. So again, mostly lawn with shade trees.
Thank you for the clarification.
Well, we're kind of on the topic. Can you just briefly speak to, I know that there's comments in the file regarding it, but the retention on site and why that's not prudent and or feasible regarding stormwater management?
Sure. So one of the issues, and Sagan actually touched upon a little bit when he mentioned that the wetlands are fed by groundwater. There's a higher groundwater table in this area, and under DEP guidance, when you have a system that's infiltrating groundwater, you're supposed to maintain 3 feet between the the level of the groundwater in the bottom of your system. So it just becomes a physical, what's the word? It becomes very difficult to put everything in the area that we've got, right? So based on where the groundwater level is, you go up 3 feet to the bottom of a system. If you have a system that's 2 or 3 feet deep, as an underground chamber, for instance, like a septic system, an underground infiltration system, and then that would have to be another 2 or 3 feet below the edge of the pavement. So now you've got to be, 3, 6, 8 to 9 feet above the groundwater table. And because we have that higher groundwater table, we don't have the room in there to add that system in place for the retention. Now, we still do meet the water quality standards as far as the 80%. Not only are we having the hydrodynamic separators, but we'll also be including, deeper sumps, 4-foot sumps on the catch basins, as well as hooded outlets, which aren't out there today. So that's certainly an improvement. And again, the increase in green space alone will also provide for increased infiltration through water that that's no longer termed runoff, because it's going to get into the green space and into the ground that way. But to answer your question, the retention issue was really a function of the higher groundwater table.
I'm not, this is Commissioner Bassman, I'm not sure I followed all of that, but I guess the bottom line is, what are we retaining on site? Do we meet the town regulation?
So Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, the town regulation is that the first inch of stormwater shall be retained on site unless it is demonstrated why it is not prudent or feasible to do so. There was a recent revision to the regs which does separate out redevelopment, allowing for a reduction of that first inch, but again, still has that language, or demonstrate why it's not prudent or feasible to do so. So basically, I was just asking the applicant to go over their rationale for why it wasn't prudent or feasible to do so, because they're not proposing retention on site. That being said, he did just highlight the fact that by increasing green space, they're not providing for retention per se, but there will be some level of retention through infiltration in those green spaces.
Well, if we're not doing the 2-inch, what are we doing?
Well, yeah, it's really a function of the prudent or the feasibility of it, and that we can't provide a standard infiltration system to hold the volume because of the high groundwater. So it's not feasible from that standpoint.
Pardon me? We're not retaining anything on site.
That's correct.
Thank you. Any other questions for the commission? I don't see any hand raised. Jamie, between what was recently submitted, Commissioner Bassman, what was recently submitted and the discussion tonight, is there anything outstanding from where you sit?
I think the only other point that I would like to make to the commission is that one of the comments that the town engineer had was regarding access to the pump station and trying to create an access that wouldn't involve trucks having to go through the residential parking lot areas, should there be a need for if the pump fails and they need to have trucks managing the pump station. So let me just share the site plan again real quick. I don't know if that's something. Let's see, I'm gonna jump to, I think, the erosion control plan. So currently there's a circular traffic and you can go through here. The pump station's located here. And the proposed site plan has the pavement ending kind of with the self-storage use. And then a separate access coming in this way for the parking provided over here. And I think what John was looking for was an access that would be more direct for the pump trucks so that they wouldn't be navigating through this entire parking area to get to the pump station, should there be an emergency. So, I mean, probably could be accommodated without significant changes to the extent of pavement on site, but that is a revision that has been requested.
Yeah, and this is John Schmitz with BL. That's an accurate description. I had a conversation with the town engineer along those lines, and the comment was stemming from, again, that today you could just drive right in the driveway and around the back directly to the pump station. And the question was, in the future, and part of the reason why under this design, why you couldn't would be because not only is the pavement stopped at that area, but because the theater storage building will have a gated entry and that's secure and a fence around that area. So the question was, we talked about, could we provide, key card access to, I don't know if it's the town that has the equipment or who does, but, could we provide key card access so that they could get through the security gate towards the back? Could we shift the fence over? It was really just a function of they didn't want the extra distance to have to drive around the building. And so we talked about potential ways to, to alleviate that. And I don't know, we've come to a final decision about it, but it didn't seem insurmountable about, are we talking about just opening a fence up or creating an extra gate? Or is there something else that, would be more palatable? I think it's just a matter of time. Again, in an emergency, on a regular basis, going back, there's not a problem, but it was related that in an emergency, time is of the essence. And obviously, that pump station is near the wetlands. So if there's, and it's a 19-foot deep wet well, and if there's an issue, they certainly don't want it. No one wants to see raw sewage into the wetlands. So again, time is of the essence. So we're trying to come to a solution that would allow trucks to get there in a more timely manner. If we could save a couple of minutes by opening the gate, it's certainly something we're willing to do.
I have a quick question. This is Katie Blanchett, Inland Wetland Associates. One of the issues that, when the application was first submitted that Jamie had brought up was along the lines of snow storage for the winter time. Can you touch upon that for the commission?
Sure. Again, John Schmitz, we had provided a plan, I think, showing some of the snow storage areas, mostly around the parking area, the perimeter of the parking area, and interior areas. And just to be clear, the two things going on with snow storage. Yeah, you can see they're highlighted in kind of a honeycomb pattern in certain areas. A couple of things with snow storage is that it's according to DEP under the guidelines, and they have been revised, but plowed snow has pollutants. There are pollutants in the snow because it's being plowed off the pavement. And so the idea is that when you're plowing snow into an area, you want to make sure that those piles, when they melt and the pollutants are released, that the pollutants still make it through your collection system and are still treated for sediment removal. And to that regard, they don't want to see snow storage areas against wetlands where, snow would just melt and run off directly into the wetlands. That's kind of a no-no. So we've positioned snow storage areas around parking areas and in areas so that when those piles do melt, they would, that runoff would still get into the stormwater system and through the stormwater quality inlets. That said, if there were, extreme snow events, I could see snow possibly being removed off site in a blizzard type situation if need be.
Anything else from the commission?
Yes, Commissioner Armrod, I had a question. One of the comments you addressed was, you mentioned there's a general permit, at this site. Um, does that apply for all the stormwater, that currently, is discharged at those 3 outlets?
Right, that would apply because the site is a commercial activity, and that that permit applies to stormwater discharge from the site, correct?
So would that same permit with the same requirements be kept for this proposed development?
Yes, yeah, and we would actually go back again because we're going to be redeveloping the site, creating soil disturbance. We'd actually be going back to DEP, registering for another general permit for discharge of water from a construction activity. So we would go back to DEP, register for that general permit, and then typically when that terminates at the end of construction, site stabilized. In this case, it would roll into a general permit for a commercial activity, discharge from a commercial activity.
Okay, thank you.
And just by way of background, you would see that on any significant commercial project anywhere in the state. First, a general permit for construction, and then a general permit for commercial.
Thank you.
It's really just another layer of oversight to make sure that the site is being properly maintained.
This is Christopher Bassman. Jamie, do we have a staff report on this or not?
Jamie Frederick and Wetland Agent, we do. I do. Like I said, it doesn't reflect the revisions for the fire access. However, I've now seen that we have gotten a revised erosion control plan. And we have kind of touched base on that retaining wall this evening. So let me see.
I mean, I'm wondering, this is Commissioner Boda, I'm wondering so we've gotten a lot of information. There needs to be some updates. We still have 2 other items that are for review tonight. If it would make sense to process this information, let Jamie update the staff report. I feel like we've been on this item for about an hour. And there's a lot of information. It's been really super helpful. Just wondering if it's time to continue to the next item and let us review this item for the December meeting.
How does the rest of the commission feel about that proposal?
Commissioner Ormrod, I have some, there is a lot here. I personally would feel like I could make a better decision after waiting for those revised plans to come in, have Jamie put together a staff report with those revisions submitted and have a look at that.
Commissioner Goklowski, I feel the same way. I feel that we should have the opportunity to digest the information that was just received and not make a rash decision with everything. So that's my thought.
Okay, so that's fine. We obviously have no objection, and I know that we need to give you permission or our consent to go into December, and you have that. And Jamie, if you'd like me to follow up with an email tomorrow morning, I'm happy to do that as well. That
would be great if you can do that. So just to clarify for the commission, I think we have received the revised materials. And I don't know that my staff report would change, but I honestly just realized I received 2 additional plan sheets. So I'm certainly, willing to take a closer look at those and let you know if I'm revising the staff report or if it stands as is. And And I guess I would just ask that as the commission is looking at the plans, if you see something that you have an outstanding question on, to forward that to staff so that we can forward it to the applicant so that it can be responded to for the December meeting.
Yeah, this is Mr. Bassman. I think, there's a lot of information that came in at the last minute, different than the other application we looked at. At least we have some time here to digest as opposed to the previous application. But that was probably a very thoughtful recommendation. Anything else on this? Sounds like an email tomorrow to clarify things, and look forward to seeing you guys in December.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Boda, Chair, I would also just request a 3-minute recess to go refill waters and whatnots, please.
Sounds like a refill or eliminate.
Jamie, this is intended.
accounted for. Construction of a new single-family residence. Updated information, Jamie? You're muted.
Amy Frederick and the wetland agent. So just to recap for the commission, proposed single family house. This is the last remaining lot of a 3-lot subdivision. The site plan closely follows the original proposed development kind of shown as part of that subdivision approval. With some modifications. At the last meeting, I expressed concern regarding the proposed planting plan and whether it was still relevant based on current site conditions. So I did meet with Jim Preddy and Matt Davison on site, and Matt did an assessment and has submitted a report basically recommending that the wetland area is in good shape and should be left alone. Going in there has the potential to encourage invasives to kind of take over. There's a lot of winterberry, maple, and other beneficial native plants already established. So we received a revised plan to reflect that. I also asked the applicant to update the limits of clearing based on the current conditions rather than the subdivision 10-year-old site conditions, because the site used to be, I believe, mowed for hay, and it has not been maintained recently, and all of these plants have established. So I guess unless the commission has any questions for me, I'll hand it over to the applicant, and I can either screen share or the applicant can screen share.
Good evening, Jim Preddy, Criscola Shepherd here at 420 East Main Street, Branford. Jamie kind of gave you my whole spiel. I think the only outstanding question was whether or not to leave the vegetation. I will share the screen just to. So this was the plan that we had presented last time. That had the same detention area and planting area with a fence limitation, a split rail fence limitation as a conservation along a conservation easement that was part of the subdivision approval. The question came whether or not to go in there now because this lot is basically all overgrown. Whether or not to remove the existing vegetation and plant this, or to leave it alone. Again, as Jamie said, we met out there with Matt Davison, and there were a number of native plants that are in there at this point, and it would do more harm than good to take them out and install these plants. To that end, we did revise the plan. I am showing a new tree line because we're so close in the back. I gave them a little bit of a side yard, and then this area here, to get utilities in. But otherwise, the rest of this will more or less leave alone. In lieu of, I thought, given Matt's comments, in lieu of putting a split rail fence all along this line here, I thought it made more sense and less disturbance actually just put in posts with the placards at the corner points, because that could be just done on metal posts that could be just hammered in the ground basically. And the other thing was that the town engineer had a few comments about directing the driveway grades to run off to the west, which we've done. And I note that we'll put silt sacks in here instead of hay bales, and the next one downstream, which is actually off the map, but I note it. And a test pit to be conducted at the start of construction to verify the detention area. This detention area is actually, what was approved at the time of subdivision. It contains approximately approximately 1,400 cubic feet of volume area. Just for reference, this particular house in this driveway area, 1 inch is only about 350 cubic feet. So this is about 4 times what we would normally do for a house like this. But because that was part of the subdivision and we haven't yet done that perk test, my suggestion is to leave it alone at this point. But you know, if the perk test comes back with really great soils, which I highly doubt in this area, we might suggest to make it smaller. But at this point, it's better to leave it alone. And that's all.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I have a couple of pictures I can share with the commission, but before I hop over to that, one question I did have is it looks like the neighbor may be encroaching a little bit with lawn maintenance perhaps over.
Yeah, it looks like when this Jim Preddy again, when this house was done, they might have gotten a little carried away with some clearing. You could see it on the aerial photograph. You know, the GIS aerial that kind of goes over a little bit.
That is that anything then that you know whether or not your client is looking to address, or probably just leave alone?
Yeah, and that's why I put the tree line where I did so that they could kind of maintain a screening between the two. But you know, we didn't discuss whether or not to go back in there and do anything at this point. I'd probably make an enemy of the neighbor to go in there and try to do something if they've been maintaining lawn. But they will be notified that you know that they are encroaching.
So if the commission would like, I can share some photos from when I went out to the site.
Let me stop.
Showing the wetland condition. It was pouring rain, so they might not be the best pictures, but so here you can see some of the herbaceous vegetation in the wetland area, and then around it you can see that there's some shrubby vegetation and younger trees. Got some nice winterberry showing its fall berries. There is some like multiflora rose was the predominant invasive, but it wasn't extremely prevalent. So Matt's comment was to manage the invasives by hand, the multiflora rose by hand cutting. And there really is a lot of nice vegetation on site. So I mean, I've seen sites where mitigation plantings have been done and 5 years later, they don't look anywhere near as nice as this. So I don't think it's beneficial to go in there and try and fix it because it's already there. So I think beyond, managing the invasives, to help make sure that they don't become more prevalent, especially as the outer edges of the area to remain become more exposed to sunlight is a good idea. But certainly clearing native vegetation to try and plant different native vegetation doesn't seem to make sense to me. So let's see. Town engineer comments were addressed. And I do have Matt Davison's report if the commission wants to take a look at that. I'll just hop over here real quick to the aerial imagery. This is what the site looked like. This is where the other house has been built, and this is approximately where the proposed house would be here, and this is likely the wetland area that we're talking about. And then this is the current condition with that house built out, and this is what the subject site looks like now. So you can see it's quite different from when the subdivision was approved. So I did have a couple minor comments which I think can either be addressed through a revision or, you know, perhaps clarification. Mostly revising the erosion control plan. It's a little hard to see, but it looks like the silt fence stops about here. So I was looking to have that extended over to the construction access and curved up just a little bit to make sure that any erosion from this area is protected from getting into the road. And then while this area might not be cleared during the main construction, it looks like it's intended to be lawn. So during the lawn establishment, I would like to see some sort of erosion control along here just to make sure that there's, even though it's kind of pitched this way, so it shouldn't really have too much of an impact to the wetland, just to make sure there's no impact to this vegetation area to remain as a buffer to the wetland area.
Both easily added.
I think those were like the only which I have addressed here in my staff report. I think that I didn't revise. I think that's double said. And then the other condition that I would recommend beyond kind of standard would be in regards to the test pit. Essentially, if there needs to be a revision to the stormwater management, that should come back to the agency for review. Does the commission want me to run through the other conditions, or am I jumping ahead too fast? I can't see any of you, so speak up.
This is Commissioner Begeman regarding the test pit, because it hasn't been tested. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so the detail says prior to start of construction, contractor shall conduct perk test in the subsoil to determine infiltration rate and shall notify the design engineer and proceed as directed. So basically the proposed condition that I had offered for consideration is that if the recommendation is for modification, that should come back to the commission for review. It was briefly touched upon earlier that it is oversized. So I mean, that kind of makes it sound like it's not likely that it would need to be revised beyond what it is right now. But if it does need to be revised, I think that's certainly something the commission would want to look at. Ideally, this would be done during the application review process. However, there is kind of, some give and take regarding that because it is a certain amount of site disturbance to go in there and do the test pit.
Mr. Bassett, do the commissioners feel that this plan as it exists with the comments from both Mr. Freddie and Jamie, that we're ready to look at the conditions, or do we want to have this reviewed by staff and come back at the December meeting with all of the I's dotted and the T's crossed?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, while the commission's thinking that over, I'll just also comment, I didn't pick up on the change from a fence to signs. However, I do see the logic behind that because as you can see from the photos, it is kind of dense vegetation. So I'm not sure about the feasibility of installing the fence without having to remove some of that vegetation. That being said, the commission might want to, particularly on this long jog of 100 feet, have an additional signpost thrown in. Signs shall be no more than 50 feet apart from each other, something like that. Just to make sure that it's not overlooked, especially with the encroachment already occurring.
Jim Preddy again. That was my change, and I you know, it's up to the commission. I thought it made more sense given Matt's comments, Matt Davison's comments. Again, this is a single family lot that had already been approved. We're mimicking what was approved at the subdivision level. At this point, the oversized detention is staying. If there's for some reason we feel that we can reduce it, we'll come back to, we'll bring it back to Jamie and she can decide whether or not to bring it to you folks. But I don't, honestly, I don't see I don't see a reason why we'd have to continue this, but I suppose that's not my choice.
If the commission wants, we can always look at the staff report as part of assisting in that decision. Just because you look at it doesn't mean you have to make a decision.
We put it up there. Thank you.
So we've already kind of gone over the background information. So, conditions for consideration, pre-construction meeting prior to clearing, initial erosion control inspection, with location to be marked out, final inspection. The conservation deed restriction referenced in the subdivision has not been filed on the land record, so that language shall be submitted for review by the inland wetland agent and town council and placed on the deed and filed map, prior to start of site work, or submitting applications for building permits. Prior to start of any site work, a revised plan shall be submitted revising the erosion control plan to address the concerns identified in the staff report for the subject site dated November 9th, 2023, to the satisfaction of the duly authorized inland wetland agent, which is those two areas that I pointed out earlier. Per the site plan, the contractor shall conduct perk tests prior to start of construction. The project engineer shall submit documentation to the inland wetland office prior to start of construction, addressing whether the stormwater system will function as designed. If modifications to the stormwater management system are needed, the revised plans must be reviewed by the inland wetlands agency or its duly authorized agent prior to start of construction. Our standard condition about having things marked out by the surveyor and picked up by a survey, and stormwater certification after project, stormwater and grading certification after project. Oh geez. A bond shall be submitted to the agency prior to construction to ensure erosion controls are installed and maintained until the site is stable, and to cover invasive species removal per the Davison environmental report for 3 years. I picked 3 years. Typically we use 3 or 5. The permit holder is to submit to the IW agent an estimate of the cost upon these items for the agent's review and approval. After approval by the agency agent, the bond is to be submitted consistent with section 13 of the regulations prior to start of work. Standard conditions, general provisions, and that's it. And these are starting point.
That condition of approval, conditions of approval.
Oh, sorry, were you addressing me, Peter?
No, I just saying, did any commissioner feel that they want to add anything or subtract anything, I guess, from the proposed conditions of approval on the staff report?
As Commissioner Begeman, I think we wanted to add that the wetlands would be posted by signs every 50 feet. You know, or something like at least every 50 feet. I don't know what it is on.
Yeah, I just wanted to read the detail regarding that. So yeah, you could certainly add something like that. I think it would impact this section here and possibly this one. 29. Yeah. I mean, it's certainly less to add a couple of fence signposts than it is to install a whole fence. So I don't think the applicant would be upset with that modification.
This is Commissioner Begeman, especially because as things grow up, if you don't have a fence and you only have a post, branches can come in front of the post, etc. So it's, you know, the more the better, probably.
You want to make a motion, Commissioner Begerman, regarding this?
Sure. This is Commissioner Begamon. I make a motion that we approve inland wetlands 23-1001, 11 Laurel Hill Road, construction of single family house in a subdivision. With the staff report dated revised 11/9/23 with an additional condition that the inland wetlands be marked by signs at least every 50 feet and include the standard guidelines and provisions, whatever that last thing is. With the along with the standard conditions and general provisions.
Second, Commissioner Boda, second.
Any further discussion? All right, roll call vote. Commissioner Begerman.
Commissioner Begerman, aye.
Commissioner Finaro.
Commissioner Finaro, aye.
Commissioner Boda.
Commissioner Boda, aye.
Commissioner Ormar.
Commissioner Ormrod, aye.
Commissioner Gokowski.
Commissioner Gokowski, aye.
Mr. Basserman, aye.
Thank you, folks.
Last up for our applications for review, inland wetland 23-1002, 35 Beechwood Road with a patio, hot tub, and some outdoor activities.
All right, Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. So at the last meeting, the commission did a preliminary review of this and talked about the level of information that needed to be submitted. The information is not available, however, I think it's worth checking in. The last meeting, the commission requested a survey for the application. So there's kind of been a question as to the level of information required for the survey. And I tried to get some clarification from Criscola Engineering regarding, because there's kind of two different, just trying to think of how to say this and use. So my understanding is that in order to get a survey, it's going to be at least 12 weeks out, which probably would mean the applicant would have to withdraw their application and resubmit. So, I guess I just wanted the commission to confirm and or look for a different surveyor that might be able to do it faster. I wanted to confirm with the commission about the survey being required for the application. And then I also wanted to touch base with updates of information we have received. So we have received a revised wetland report. A wetland scientist did go out and reflag the wetlands. I've been out to the site and seen the flags. They predominantly follow a chain link fence line, which is shown on the site plan we have on file with the application, which was done, I believe, by a landscape architect. And I did do a measurement from the back of the house to that fence line to just confirm that the dimensions shown on the site plan do appear to be accurate and reflective of what the site is. And then we also have received a report from the soil scientist reviewing the proposed activity regarding any potential impact to wetlands. So let's see where to start. So one of the reasons I think the commission wanted an updated wetland line is because there were two different wetland lines based on various surveys in our file. I think one was from prior to the subdivision being developed, and one was from after the subdivision was developed. So there's probably some impact during the initial subdivision development. And we just never got an updated wetland delineation to document and reflect that impact.
It's Commissioner Basserman. Jamie, is the timeframe specific to the A2 survey, the 12-week comment, or is it?
So from my vantage point, this is a little bit extra complicated because site work has already to some extent started. So there was an existing pergola and deck which have been removed. And at that point I was then contacted by the contractor to see if any sort of approval would be required. So in my mind, it would be ideal to review this sooner rather than later in the sense of getting the site restored. So I guess that's why I'm bringing this back to the commission and asking them to kind of reconsider. Not telling you that you shouldn't require it, just, you know, trying to highlight all of the information and get to, you know, where we need to be. So this is the site plan that was initially submitted, and it shows the existing chain link fence I was talking about right here, the line with little circles, and then we've got the 2 wetland lines. I told them, you know what, here's 2 reference wetland lines, put them both on your site plan and we'll discuss. So here is the wetland sketch from the soil scientist's investigation. And I didn't throw the pictures in the Dropbox, but I do have some pictures from when I went out to the site. Let me see if I can grab them real quick but the wetland line mostly kind of follows the fence and curves away from the fence on either end. So I would say it's closer that the wetland line is like kind of like this, and it does peek out a little bit onto this side of the silt fence and kind of bear away again. So at the last meeting, there was discussion regarding whether or not a survey was required for the review and regarding stormwater management. And potential plantings to help mitigate stormwater in this area behind the arborvitae, because it's kind of open currently. So there's an opportunity to plant that with some beneficial plantings. And then there's also discussion, so this is the proposed site plan. So existing conditions, the pergola and deck have been removed, as has this cobblestone patio area. The pool and deck, pool patio remain. And then what they're proposing to do is replace the deck and pergola with additional patio, which would accommodate a hot tub and an outdoor grill station. So like an outdoor kitchen, but without a sink or things like that, a sitting area and fireplace. And then the artificial turf, which I don't know, but the applicant might be removing from the site plan. And then they wanted to replace the shed with a slightly shed twice the size. So there is an increase in impervious. It's not a huge increase, and it's of the threshold where the commission can waive some of the stormwater requirements. So, I mean, I certainly think that there's enough increase that the commission wants to see some sort of management. I guess the question is, given the soils report and the soil scientists' findings regarding potential impact, if planting of that area could be considered sufficient stormwater management, or if more information is going to be needed. So the soil scientist goes over comments. Do you guys want me to read it to you? I know you probably don't because it's late, but at the same time, I think it might be the easiest way to just get through this. Pavilion is being proposed in the location of existing pool and pool deck. pergola was previously located within this area. That pergola was approved in 2010 and has since been removed. The pavilion will essentially occupy the same space as pergola. No work will occur in the wetlands, which are mainly located on the other side. Excuse me. Other side of the existing chain link fence. There'll be no significant expansion of the disturbance outside of the previously developed hardscape areas. Consequently, there'll be no direct or significant impacts to the wetlands, which are located below and to the east of the already developed area. Furthermore, since the pavilion will occupy essentially the same footprint as the previous pergola, the project is not substantially different from what was approved in 2010, in my opinion, and my comments in my previous 2010 report are still largely valid. Fireplace being proposed is in place of earlier fire pit. Area was already hardscaped. Wetland boundary was redelineated October 25th, 2023, and a soils report issued. Wetlands were found to extend a few feet west of the existing chain link fence towards the residence and pool. Using the 2023 plan as a reference, the 2023 wetland line is located between the 61493 wetland line and 11893 wetland line. The wetland area west of the fence is predominantly grass over wetland soil, while the wetland east of the fence is forested. There is an opportunity to enhance the area west of the fence below the pool area with wetland and buffer plantings. It is recommended such a plan be professionally prepared and implemented. And those are the comments.
Jamie, what information do we need to fully evaluate this proposal that the A2 survey would give us and we could not get from another source?
So I guess that's kind of why I'm bringing this to the commission. So like I said, I did measure from the back of the house to the fence to confirm that this spatial distance is accurately portrayed on the site plan, and it appeared to be. And this is based off of an A2 survey. As far as the property dimensions. So an A2 survey, if the commission wanted an A2 survey with elevations, I mean, then you would have the elevational information. It is relatively flat. Let me jump over to the pictures real quick. Is everyone seeing the pictures?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can see that they have installed a silt fence as I asked, since they have removed the deck. There wasn't a huge erosion concern, but you can see that there is some disturbed soil. So I wanted to make sure something got installed. And you can see the existing fence line and the pink flags are the recent wetland flagging. You can see it's mostly like the report was saying, grass on this side and it's forested on the other side. Oops. Gosh. So this does confirm the wetland line is, predominantly along where that fence line is. This is the deck and pergola from beforehand. So this is kind of the area where so these are the arborvitae behind the proposed patio expansion. And this is the area that I think would be ideal for them to provide some additional plantings, because it's kind of open right now, and the stormwater, without having a management system, would sheet flow this way towards the wetland. So it would help provide an additional vegetated buffer to, process the water running off towards the wetland area. There is a bit of an elevation change, but it's not significant. And that being said, and kind of the discussion we had earlier with high groundwater, I'm not sure that there's a whole lot of opportunity for a stormwater system. That being said, it's certainly within the commission's right to ask for them to do that investigation. I just don't know, based on the scope of change of work from what was existing to what is proposed, that, I think the commission should consider that as whether or not that information is needed for review of this application. And let me just, okay, here we go. So this is from when I went out to the site earlier, and you can see this is where the pergola was, has been removed. And then you can see that the base of the arborvitae are a little bit lower, but the patio will remain on the flat portion of the site. So I did mention that it would probably be a good idea to either put some crushed stone, because there is going to be a roof area over here, or mulch, just to help with the long-term stabilization of that area from the transition of the patio to the existing vegetation to remain, and additional plantings behind it potentially.
It's Commissioner Basserman. Is, given the information that you saw on site, given the information that you've received, is requesting an A2 survey in this particular case overkill?
I think there's there's other information that would be more relevant to the commission's review than an A2 survey. It is a lot of activity that is being proposed, but I'm not really sure, unless the commission is, concerned with that, 2 to 3 feet of space between the patio and the trees, and I'm not sure that it's worth having an A2T2 survey for that. I don't think it would be unreasonable for the commission to waive the A2 survey for this project, given the review in 2010.
Hang on.
But it is your judgment call.
Yeah, let me ask this question. Forget the A2 survey. Is there other information that is still required for this site to get its full review?
Yes.
Okay, if that's the case, why isn't this then a candidate to be tabled for the December meeting?
Because I wanted to have a conversation with the commission, because right now, per the commission's direction, an A2 survey is required. And I didn't feel comfortable, based on the fact the commission determined that at the last meeting, saying, yes, you're good to go, you don't need an A2 survey. So I wanted to definitely have that conversation with the commission. And so I think the two outstanding points aside from that are stormwater management. Do you want to see something from a PE, a licensed engineer, or would you be satisfied with a landscape plan to enhance that area between the wetland and the existing evergreen plantings? And then the side piece would, I don't think we have to get into tonight, but we had discussed previously, if the applicant wants to put in the artificial turf, they're going to have to submit information regarding that artificial turf so that the commission can review that relative to wetland impacts. So, that's outstanding information, but I don't think we have to get into that tonight.
Given the fact that there's still information that is pertinent to our responsibilities regarding the wetland, I guess the only thing on the table for me tonight is whether the commission is going to hang on to the fact that we need an A2 survey, or given the information that's been collected so far, we need to update the record to indicate that that's no longer a requirement. I guess that's the issue in front of the commission this evening.
That, and whether a PE should be involved in the stormwater review.
Okay.
Excuse me, Peter? Oh, sorry.
Hold on, not your turn.
Okay, I don't know how this works. Sorry about that.
No problem. Does any commissioner feel that the A2 survey should still be a requirement?
Commissioner Goklowski, is there an A2 survey on the land records in the building department currently on file?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, we have an A2 survey showing the foundation as built. It does not show the additional site improvements since then, but we do have that, and so that's what I used to confirm that the proposed site plan spatially kind of aligns, if you will.
Okay.
And that was given to the landscape architect to create the site plan, and it's referenced and spatially, it's to scale. You use an architectural scale instead of a engineering scale, but it's to scale.
Any other comments from the commission?
So by shaking of heads, I got what seemed to be a general consensus that the A2 survey requirement can be waived. And regarding stormwater management, does the commission feel that a PE, a licensed engineer, needs to weigh in on that? Or given the amount of change from the previous condition, is the commission okay with that being addressed by a planting plan? Just trying to make sure we're good to go next time.
Well, you mentioned, Commissioner Goklowski, you mentioned early on that the artificial turf is off the table, but the original application included it. So I just want to be careful if we do any approvals based on the current application in front of us.
Yeah,
So-
we're that off. Sorry again. Sorry, Peter.
Okay, just for the record, can you identify yourself?
Vin Bevilacqua, 35 Beechwood. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so with that comment, I would not recommend action on this tonight because I definitely would recommend that the commission at least require that planting enhancement for some sort of stormwater management, especially since the area is prime and ready and begging for something to be planted there, in my opinion. And so if the turf is being removed from the application, that should definitely be submitted as part of a revision, in addition to a planting plan. And so the outstanding question is whether or not a PE needs to be involved in the review of the stormwater management.
Mr. Bassman, what would the PE give us that a planting plan would be remiss in its information?
So I think you would want a PE if you were concerned about volume increases. It's pretty much the same footprint. The biggest difference is the deck allowed for some water to fall through it, whereas now the water is going to flow off of the patio. You know, it's not going to get taken up in that space at all. But it's spread out over a distance. So, you know, it's of a threshold where I don't know that it's required, but I don't want him to get held up because he didn't have a PE review it. So if the commission feels that it's required, you know, again, I don't think it's out of line for the commission to require that, but it's also at a level where I don't think it would be out of line for the commission to waive it as long as you were satisfied that some sort of, you know, management as the site allows is being provided. So I would say if you're concerned about erosion, but you've already got the row of arborvitae and we're looking to put some additional plantings behind it. And I talked about either putting mulch or crushed stone, particularly where the pavilion roof drip line would be. I don't know if the commission needs a PE to comment on that. I don't know that the volume of water is enough for that, but I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
In my mind, Mr. Bassman, in my mind, you might get more of the why if you had a PE as opposed to just a planting plan, right? You'd have a little more, I'd say, information as to why the choices that were made, as opposed to somebody just putting a plan out there with appropriate shrubs or whatever, saying, well, we think that this is what's gonna take.
Yeah, and I guess just to supplement that, if you were to ask me, which I think is more important for this application, the A2 survey or potentially a review and comment by a PE regarding stormwater, I would say I think that the stormwater review is more important, given the location relative to the wetland. So.
Anybody not approve the idea of a PE and feel that the landscape plan would be sufficient? Okay.
Be nice, but so I didn't get anything from anyone else on that one last bit. Can somebody throw something out there or shake their head? All I got was blank stares.
But this is Commissioner Boda. I don't know that it necessarily has to be specifically a PE. I mean, I think an environmental scientist, a landscape architect, I think that folks who work on that have expertise in dealing with plantings with respect to stormwater management, I think that would be sufficient. It doesn't necessarily have to be a PE.
Okay.
But it should be somebody who is knowledgeable and has credentials to speak on that topic.
In light of that comment, I just want to identify that we do have the report from Stephen Danzer, PhD, soil scientist, senior professional wetland scientist, arborist, nationally certified soil scientist, registered with the Society of Soil Scientists, certified PWS, certified arborist, PhD in renewable natural resource studies, stating that essentially he does not think that it's going to have an impact to the wetland. Does that sufficiently address it with the caveat that there should be a professional planting plan? So does that circle around to state kind of supporting the fact that we need the professional planting plan for that area to satisfy the stormwater? You want me to put it back up on the screen? No comment.
Commissioner Goklowski, I feel that with the proper planting plan in place in that particular area adjacent to the wetlands, I think we should be okay. We don't have a planting there now, and apparently it hasn't affected the wetlands that much, and they're still doing the same activity that they were doing in the past. So my only concern was the artificial turf. That was my biggest concern. So.
All right, I think we've got a decent amount of feedback for the applicant. If the applicant has any questions, I'm going to be out of the office on Friday, but I'll be back in on Monday if you want to touch base. Thank you, commissioners, for your patience.
He's raised his hand a number of times. You want to make it right now? It's your turn.
Hopefully next time it'll be quick.
I just wanted to chime in as people were talking, just sort of to say like, hey, I had the scientists come out, sort of what he said, there hasn't been any effects on the wetlands due to what we had, and the scientists sort of verified it. And I was trying to just say, yeah, we're taking the turf out. That was the contractor's idea. He didn't know there was wetland. Hey, well, we told him, but he don't want to listen. Just what's my next step? I talked to you, Jamie. I just want to be clear.
Let's touch base on Monday, okay?
Okay, yeah, because that was his idea, was to have the plantings done. He said that was the biggest thing. Probably, nothing else really would affect the area. So I appreciate you guys' time. I know you guys all got to be exhausted, especially for my little thing. Everyone's got bigger problems and issues, but you guys deserve a raise for this stuff or something.
You mean they should work for more than free?
Oh, I hope it's not free.
They're volunteers.
This is harder than my job was doing this tonight.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Monday.
Have a good one. See you later.
All right, we got a bunch of enforcement here. I guess the first one kind of pushed off to December. Don't need to deal with that anymore tonight, correct?
Correct.
All right. Notice of violation, cease and correct 220601 20 Huntington Drive. Regulated activities without a permit.
All right. Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I have what is perhaps a surprising update. Plantings have been planted. Slope has been seeded and is stable. The property owner was gonna be present, but I got an email stating he got called into work and isn't able to attend. However, there's 3 outstanding things. One is signs have been installed, but they're installed on the equivalent of, the wooden stakes that surveyors use to mark things in the field, which we usually require signs to be at 3 to 4 feet off the ground. So he stated that his contractor is going to be coming out Saturday to replace the post with appropriate posts. And he was able to contact a surveyor. However, they say they can have it to me the first week of December. It sounds like he might be able to have the survey submitted prior to the December meeting. He doesn't have it yet, but hopefully we'll have a survey with the wetland flags for December. And then
So it sounds like progress.
So I think we're good. Next update will be next month. The only thing I think is outstanding is the commission was to approve the plan for stabilizing the slope. I talked with him about getting it stabilized with vegetation, just with something for now. So it's lawn. So I think the commission needs to decide if they're okay with it just being lawn, or if you were looking for more of a planting plan. At which point I think the planting plan would be to satisfy the cease and correct order. And if you really wanted to maintain it as lawn, it might be an after the fact application, or perhaps the commission is just satisfied with the fact that it's stabilized. Do you want to table that discussion until December?
Works for me.
All right, so we'll table any further review until December. That's that one.
Notice of violation has already been tabled to the December 14th meeting. Is that because on presence, or are we still looking for?
So we were supposed to have an application for receipt this meeting. The property owner does not have an application ready. I don't think he's gonna have one ready for December either, but I don't know that we want to push it off forever. So discuss where he's at and when you can have it submitted by at that meeting. Unless
Cease and correct 221201 21 Branford Road and 230901 21 Branford Road.
So Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. After the last meeting, I contacted the property owner, sent him a follow-up letter, directing him to finish installing the silt fence correctly, contact the inland wetland office for inspection, contact the inland wetland office to set up a meeting with town staff to discuss outstanding violations and site status and resolution. I told him I'd try and have an interpreter present, offered 2 dates, did not hear anything back. I offered today's date because this was the only date that an interpreter was present prior to tonight's meeting. When I didn't hear anything back, I sent out a follow-up reminding him of tonight's meeting and asking about 2 future dates in November. I haven't heard anything back. So I don't have any update for you. No progress was made at the last court date. My understanding was he did not show. The next court date is December 5th, which is prior to the December meeting. So that's the update.
I think there was an issue regarding fines that was raised at the last meeting.
So I guess the 2 actions the commission could take tonight would be to make a decision on the cease and correct order that is still open, which would be the 230901, and or issue fines associated with the activities identify or start the citation process. So I would issue an initial notice of fines and then the citation within the allowable time frame per the town ordinance. Assuming that he hasn't corrected things, which
Is it premature to issue another set of fines when there is still a court date to be had?
I don't know that it's premature because it is separate. That being said, it is my understanding and per discussions with town council that the commission can issue a citation once per violation, based on past practice and case law. And if the commission wanted to fine on a daily basis, that would be something that would have to go through the court system. So barring him doing additional activity, I don't think we'd be able to I don't think the amount of fines would change between now and the December meeting, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
This is Commissioner Boda. It seems like there's a lot going on. I don't know that we need to add anything to it, especially since there's a court date right before our next meeting. I say we leave well enough alone for now.
Seems reasonable to me. So if that's the case, the commission would just be continuing the just cause hearing for the 2023-0901 cease and correct order to the December 14th meeting. And I'd keep both on the agenda. But
And when you said daily fines would have to go through the court system, we do not today have the authority for daily fines, correct?
Correct, yes. Yeah, that's my understanding. That would have to be a court issued fine. Do you want me to send another follow-up letter to the property owner, basically outlining the same things from the November letter and changing it to you shall attend the December 14th meeting? And try and schedule a meeting with staff prior to that.
Yes. I think that's what we normally do, and yeah.
Commissioner Begemon, why was the 22-1201 cease and correct? Was that taken care of?
No, they're both open. The second one was issued due to him clearly ignoring the first one in additional activity.
I thought you just said that there was only one that was still open, so.
So the just cause hearing is only open for one. So both are still active violations. The commission has decided to uphold and modify the first order. No decision has been made regarding the second order yet.
Okay.
So I mean, you guys could make a decision tonight, but it doesn't really change anything because the order remains in effect as written until you make a decision. So. And that gives you flexibility if you need to modify it based on something that comes up between now and December.
Okay, 250 North Main, Inland Wetlands, 170705. Looks like we got finally a monitoring report. Was that just received?
It was received at the end of October. Seems like it was just received, but it was a little while ago. So we do have, I believe the soil or the botanist, wetland professional present for the phone call. So there's a standard 85% survival threshold requirement and management of invasive species. They're a little bit below that threshold, and the report kind of parses out the different mitigation areas and there's a lot of numbers in the report. So I did do a brief memo kind of trying to summarize the key takeaways from the mitigation reports that I can share. And then I guess my question for the commission is, based on the fact that the success standards have not been complied with, are there additional requirements regarding the monitoring of the mitigation areas that you want to enforce? Because there is the stipulation that the commission can extend it if it's not satisfied. And I wanted to have the applicant present to speak to that a little bit as far as, you know, if there's any, if anything is to be extended, where that effort might be best placed. So let me just share this table. So you can see the three kind of success standards across the top: at least 85% survival, management of invasive species, stabilization of slopes, soil substrates, and constructed features. So in year one, there was 85% survival. Invasive management of invasive species was generally identified as unknown. Stabilization, yes. And then you can see basically years 2 and 3 for invasives appears unlikely. And then years 4 and 5, cutting / mowing recommended should be on a different line. Recommended additional action be taken throughout the growing season. So essentially, they identified that there was cutting and mowing of the invasive species, but that additional activity throughout the growing season would help facilitate success of the invasive on site. Generally speaking, with stabilization, they were all set. Year 3, there was a problem with the slope in one spot, which was quickly addressed. So I would say that this is satisfied. Excuse me. And then as far as survival, you can see it's dropped slightly over the years to the point where it's just below 85%. There was a wetland creation area, and then there were 2 upland areas adjacent to the wetlands that were planted, which would be the wetland buffer planting areas. So you can see that the wetland creation area did meet 85%, but the wetland buffer areas didn't, to the point where it brought the overall percentage just below the 85. So my kind of initial thoughts in reviewing this was that, you know, additional plantings might not necessarily be the best or needed. However, I think a lot of the issues that some of the survival of these plantings were having was due to competition and overgrowth by invasives. So it might make sense to have some additional invasive management and maybe, you know, more comprehensive management through the year to try and help make it more successful. But those are kind of my initial thoughts, which I have not shared with the applicant. And I guess my recommendation to the commission from here would be to see what the applicant has to say to that, unless you have any questions.
I do. I guess, have we had experience with resiliency and the 85% in other large tracts in our experience? Is this unusual, or have we seen this before when there is, you know, large cleared areas?
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. So, you know, honestly, this is the largest mitigation area that I personally have experience with that has made it this far through the monitoring period. You know, I mean, I think we're very close to that 85%. And, you know, I guess what just makes me a little bit concerned is, from what I can recall from reading the reports, that the invasive species is what's been kind of bringing those numbers down. And so if we kind of walk away from the project and say, yep, you've done 5 years, we're good, what's it going to look like in another 5 years? So, I mean, I don't think that we need to extend it another 5 years, because they clearly have been doing, you know, maintenance of the area. It's just, you know, unfortunately, maybe could have been more aggressive about the invasive species management earlier. And maybe one thing to take away from this, for future projects is, you know, particularly on something of this scale, having a professional invasive management company doing the invasive management work might help facilitate having success within the targeted time frame.
Yeah, and the other good news is in the creation area, it seems to be doing okay.
Yeah, overall, it does appear to be doing well.
Okay.
So-
Floor is yours, telling us about what could be done different. Who wants to take the?
Or
Yeah, this is John Schmitz with BL, project manager. So BL 355 Research Parkway, Meriden, Connecticut. Up tonight here is Jen Bello from Soil Science Environmental Services, who actually did the report. So, Jen, I think if you want to say a few words about what you saw in the field, I know that, in addition to the plantings that you went out and saw, there were also some, I don't know the technical term, but species that weren't planted that are native that did establish themselves in there, which don't count toward the 85%, but in addition to invasives that are growing, there's also some native stuff that like found its way there as well. So I know, Jen, if you kind of want to give a background of what you saw out there.
Sure. I'm Jen Benno with Soil Science and Environmental Services. And I was out there mid-October this year to do the inspection that occurred like shortly after the invasive species maintenance. And there's the bad is obviously all the invasive species out there. There's a ton of mugwort, which is highly invasive, and that's occurring within the eastern area. So it's on the right side of the entrance driveway on that hill below the retaining wall. And then there's quite a bit of frag, as you can see when you drive by on Route 1 before it's cut. And that's the biggest problem. But then there's a positive, which the trees are healthy and they're growing. Some of them are over 20 feet now. A lot of the shrubs are like 5 to 8 feet tall now that have survived. And as John mentioned, there are several native species that are starting to volunteer into the area, and that includes like willow, silky dogwood, some alders volunteering in there. What else is on my list? Oh, there are cottonwood trees that are actually starting to volunteer in there too. And when I was out there last time, I did see a bunch of little red maple seedlings starting to volunteer in there. So you do have several native species that are volunteering in. But the issue again is still going to be the invasive species. And I think that's just going to be in perpetuity for the entire site for the project. I don't think there's really an end in sight for taking care of invasive species, unfortunately. And I think it's because they were already so well established on the site, and they also occur on the adjacent properties and right in the neighborhood. So you always have that source, whether it's existing on the site or nearby off-site. But like you said, the wetland area is actually functioning very well. We have a really nice emergent swamp kind of in the middle with standing water. I've seen 2 years in a row, 6 to 8 inches deep. And it's supporting more diversity of species, herbaceous species. There's a bunch of rushes and some cattails in there, and that's always nice. I see usually some frogs in there too when I do the inspection. So it is providing wildlife habitat, and it's increasing the diversity. So that is a positive.
Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland Agent. So I do just kind of want to take a step back. And so the reason why this is before the commission is because it doesn't meet the success criteria on the surface of things, but certainly there's nuance to it. So, like I said before, I don't think, especially in light of the volunteer natives that have popped up in the area, that additional plantings are warranted given the fact that we're at 82% survival. My bigger concern would be the invasive species and whether you need a formal continuance of the invasive species management, or I don't recall the specifics off the top of my head, and I was hoping I had more time to look at this prior to the meeting, but
so
bunch of things came in.
This
is
is
want to
identify
one thought.
Yeah,
there is a long-term invasive species management plan as well. So perhaps an alternative would be reporting on what they're doing to continue the long-term continue the invasive species management moving forward. So that's the thought I wanted to finish.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that was the question or the suggestion is that you know, because that is always the issue is the invasives. And so, I don't know if we extended by 2 years, continued monitoring, which would really be primarily for invasives, but to ensure that the native population, whether it's the original planting plan or native plantings that have volunteered, have a strong foothold. That's what I would want to see on the site, really. And it's 10:40, so like I just want to get to a conclusion because I'm up at 5 and I'm not thinking clearly, and we got to wrap it up, or I got to wrap it up.
So you would be looking to see the monitoring extended for another 2 years? So
I mean, I think that would be my best solution at the moment,
to make sure that there's at least not an acceleration of decrease in invasive or natives, and hopefully
that there's
volunteers are helping to balance.
That there is not an overtaking of the invasives over a native population.
That reasonable for B&L?
You know, I mean, coming into this, we were kind of anticipating that, you know, at least 1 year. Clearly, there's an ongoing issue with invasive, so I think it's something that needs to be addressed. We may just be chasing it, you know, in perpetuity. So I don't know, you know, even at the end of 2 more years, are we in the same boat 2 years from now? I don't know, but you know, it's up to, if the commission would like us to continue, it's certainly reasonable to do so.
Why don't we take that as a yes?
Sure. Yep.
So the kind of new target for the next 2 years is that natives are increasing, invasives are ideally decreasing, or at least not increasing. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think even if we reached a level of equilibrium, where our natives are outperforming, and that may come with canopy as some of those some of the taller plantings don't leave as much room for some of our invasives that like to slide in when there's a lot of sunlight.
Okay. 1151 West Main Street.
So I'll send a follow-up letter to the applicant reflecting that, and unless there's any questions.
1151 West Main Street, 191101 Bank Grocery Associated Site Mitigation Status.
Amy Frederick and the Wetland Agent. So I'm not sure if we're going to get a status update on this tonight. I don't think anyone's here for this. Per correspondence sent previously, we were supposed to get an update tonight. So my recommendation, given timing, is that I send a follow-up letter saying that they better have something submitted a week before the next meeting for review at the December meeting, or else the commission's likely to pursue enforcement action. Does that seem fair?
Words to live by. All right, 2024 meeting schedule. We had some conversation at the last meeting about whether we want to 11 o'clock, you know, when we meet once a month, or is there a way to adjust the meeting schedule so that it's a little more palatable? One proposal was to have scheduled, and I guess we have to schedule, but schedule 2 meetings a month, and then we can cancel if we feel we only need 1 meeting. And my understanding is, Jamie, that is something we could do every month at the beginning of the month to decide whether we want that second meeting or not.
Yeah, so you can always cancel regularly scheduled meetings. You can never add regularly scheduled meetings. So a benefit to potentially having 2 regularly scheduled meetings every month is applications could still be for receipt at that second meeting, even if you cancel it. So if you cancel a meeting and you receive an application that would normally be received at that meeting, it's still received that date. So, you know, you could have a standing practice of having 2 meetings, and at the end of the meeting, the first meeting of the month, have an agenda item. Are we holding the next meeting? Yes or no? And if you say no, we'll file a cancellation notice. If you say yes, then, you know, we meet in another 2 weeks. Or we can keep it status quo and meet once a month. I probably would recommend staying away from the quarterly, because I think that might get confusing. But you know,
Willing to take that off the table, believe me.
it's a nice idea, but I think it would get confusing. Whereas, you know, if we cancel the meeting, we would obviously let all the commissioners know. So if you were at the first meeting of the month, you would know that the second one's canceled. So that way, if there's a lot on the agenda, you know, you can easily say, you know what, we can finish this in 2 weeks and have the meeting in 2 weeks. Or if there's not a lot on the agenda and somebody's going to need a month to respond to something anyways, you can just say, you know what, it's not going to be productive to meet in 2 weeks. We're canceling this meeting. Everything's continued to.
Jamie, it's Katie. I'm just thinking, if we canceled the meeting immediately, like at the end of the first meeting, then if we get like a violation or something, then we're gonna have to set up a special meeting.
Correct.
So maybe we could wait.
Well, we could also have a practice of canceling it, barring any violations being issued.
Yeah. I just don't want to have to schedule, you know, or reschedule.
You don't want to file 2 pieces of paper instead of 1?
No.
Who wants to stay with the existing 1 meeting a month scheduled meeting? Who likes the idea of scheduling 2 meetings and being able to cancel the second one based on demand?
I would say an in between is if we do move to the 2 meetings and that's too aggressive for people, you know, at some point through the year, we could just pre-cancel the second meeting.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Boda. I'd be willing to try it. I think I would really look to Jamie and the chair to not allow meetings if we have to. They can't run past 9:30. They can't. I can't do it.
Well, if we're meeting twice a month and we still have meetings going past 9:30, then something's wrong, right?
Yeah, I just can't.
Yeah, I'd also recommend that the commission maybe adopt, and we'll talk more about it later if you're interested, a practice of if an application is not received a week before the meeting, it's just for receipt and there'll be no discussion.
Yeah, or some of the stuff that we had tonight where people are sending stuff the day of, they can't, then they get pushed because.
Yeah, if there's time to continue it, then you're tabled.
Yeah.
Is there a way to, this is Commissioner Funaro, is there a way to know how much time each item is going to take so it's not kind of stacked so much in one meeting? No.
It would be nice, but I think that would be difficult. But that could also be a benefit to if you're meeting twice a month. You know, if something's not quite ready, say you're not quite ready, we're tabling you until the next meeting. You know, whereas so I mean, there's a whole bunch of ideal reasons why it could work. Emphasis on could. But like I said, you can always cancel a regularly scheduled meeting. Just because you have one scheduled does not mean you have to meet. You don't have to not have a quorum or something like that. You can just say we're not going to meet and notice. As long as it's noticed that you're not going to meet, it's fine.
What is the quorum?
So that's the minimum amount of members that have to be present. So for
what's the
4.
Okay.
Jamie, what has to happen for us to adopt that framework of anything that's received X days before the meeting schedule, would not be considered at that meeting.
We could just draft something up as staff for you guys to kind of review and adopt potentially. I think just making a motion on it, but also having a document that we can, share in case somebody questions it and say, no, this is how we do things.
Can you put that as a priority item for the December meeting? Because I think that has to go into place regardless of whether we change the schedule or not.
Sure.
Commissioner Goklowski, I think the two applicants that we had tonight, the Harrison Avenue and East Main Street, I mean, they both put in last minute requests. And personally, I think we spent a lot of time on something that we didn't even have. We were reviewing the information that we should have been able to review before we came into the meeting. And we took up a lot of additional time that we didn't need to.
Yeah, I hear you.
And I'm sure everyone was uncomfortable with how that played out.
Unfortunately, with the Harrison Ave one, there's not a whole lot we could do because, but
Still doesn't feel good.
so we'll do a bylaw. We'll do like a kind of bylaw thing, if you will, regarding general practices and submissions being heard.
I mean, we could have rejected the application. That's what we could have done tonight, but we didn't. So, I mean, we did them a favor.
You could have for incomplete and insufficient time to review.
We have no agent approvals at this time.
Wait, did we make a decision on them 1 week or one or two a month?
Consensus for 2 a month. I don't know.
Not want to try 2 meetings a month as a schedule?
And the follow-up to that would people generally be available the second and fourth Thursday of the month? Because if we're not going to have a quorum on the fourth Thursday of the month, it's not.
I think that's the only way to do it. I don't know what I can't do back-to-back Thursdays, so I'm not really sure what the alternative would be.
Yeah. So
the second and the fifth Thursday.
But no one has a standing conflict that's present on the fourth Thursday of the month.
Put it this way, if after 3 meetings we can't get a quorum for the second meeting, that tells us something.
And we'll cancel them. All right, so we'll schedule it and we'll address it as needed for two meetings a month in 2024.
Right, no agent approvals, and we have the Packywig annual meeting on the 11th, and I know a number of you are attending. So hopefully we'll have decent weather and a good conference.
Motion to adjourn.
Thanks for that. Yeah, can we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
That one.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, all.
Have a good night.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.